past when you thought there was nothing left for you to do with your night. The Revolver podcast, Mama Hot Flash, crew is hot, always doing you right. With a fresh take on gaming weekly, PCs, consoles, and handhelds. Bump what you heard since birth on this earth. We know that the future belongs to the nerds. Revolver Live. What you say? Revolver Live every Sunday at 6, bringing that gaming magic to your life. Doing it live on Twitch, the show that you don't want to miss. Be sure to subscribe. Crack yourself a brew. If at work or Yahoo, now you can join the crew for the ride. Xbox, mobile, and hot topics around the nation. To gaming rigs, headsets, hardware, and PlayStation. Shout out to Joe. Can't you see him glow? Token brother brought the flow. Now it's time for the show. Let's go.
Welcome to Revolver Live, the gaming podcast that says forget the past, the future belongs to the nerds. I'm the Beastly Gamer, 1/4 of the coolest dollar you'll see on the internet, followed by my 3 amazing co-hosts, the king of all things Destiny, Briar Rabbit. How you doing this week, my friend?
Who's there? Get off my lawn.
It's all green behind you. I don't know if you're in the yard or not. What's up, man?
How you doing, Beastly? I'll be honest with you, I've had an awful week. I've been sick all week. And I felt like I was getting better yesterday, and then I started getting sick again today. So I don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, you're
I'm on a lot of over-the-counter drugs and a little bit of alcohol.
That combination might not be good for you, but nonetheless, you look amazing. So I'm sorry to hear that you feel so bad, but you look so good. Welcome, my friend. Ryan Wilson, what's going on, sir? How you feeling this week?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really tired. I have a glass trade show that I'm getting ready for next week, and I am exhausted. We've been pulling some crazy hours. I got a buddy, fellow glassblower, who's in from out of town, and when he comes into town, we work hard. We push each other to work hard. So I did like a 10 in the morning till about 6, came home for an hour or two, and then worked till about 1, 2 in the morning the other night, and then went and did a full day of work the next day. So I'm exhausted. I'm ready to get this trade show over and make some damn money and play Destiny 2 on PC at the end of the month.
I'm very, very happy for you, man. I know you've been working really hard, and we'll miss you next week. We know you won't be here. We're going to try to get a stand-in. But the work that you do, we really appreciate. I hear that there's a great business for glass anal beads. I've never used them before.
I feel like that's an awful idea.
I mean, he said he's been pulling long shifts all night. Who knows, man, what kind of glass he's making. But nonetheless, I'm really happy that you're working so hard. I can't wait to find out how everything goes for you next week.
Thank you.
Gary, the motherfucking Diaz. How you feeling, my UK brother?
I'm feeling terrified out of my skin because presently I have a force of nature, which I have right here
that's
with
a
me.
cute fucking cat, man.
At all times. This thing has found every part of my equipment that it wants to destroy. It's eaten almost every cable I own.
Let's see that face one more time, please.
Well,
you have a meme with you at all times. Wow.
Look at him.
Oh my God.
My goodness.
Oh my God. See, look, let me just tell you guys who are watching, unfortunately for people who are listening on podcasts, Gary is a psychology major, but he doesn't really boast it. He's already a very handsome young lad, right? Himself. He has the pink diva hoodie behind him, and then he pulls out this cat. So it's like a triple threat. Makes just the fans fall in love. We understand what you're doing, Gary. Good job.
I am drowning in ladies' various fluids. No, it's this cat is a menace. I found it asleep on top of my PC where it should be letting out air. It's decided that was a great cool place to sleep.
Yeah.
I was wondering why the
It's nice
fans
and
are
warm
running so
there,
hot.
Gary. It's nice.
It's very warm.
Yeah, that was it. The cat was just
And it gets
absorbing
warmer
all
the longer she stays there.
Exactly. So, yeah, at any point in the preceding evening, you may see this screen behind me shatter. She's already scaled it once, so yeah, it's all going down. But I'm here.
She's a beautiful cat, man. I was looking at pictures of her on Twitter. You did really well. I don't know if I could spend $600 on a cat, but just her face alone is worth $1,000. So I think you did really, really well. Welcome to Revolver Live, guys. Revolver Live is a gaming podcast with 6 revolving topics. We go live every Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/Briar Rabbit, twitch.tv/Briar Rabbit. If you'd like to become a part of the show, submit your topics to revolvergamescast@gmail.com. That's revolvergamescast@gmail.com. We also share the video on YouTube at Briar's YouTube channel and my channel, Beastly Gamer. If you're unable to see the live feed or the video format, check us out in podcast form at Podbean, iTunes, or your favorite podcast service provider. And with that, welcome to Revolver Live.
Beastly, you dirty motherfucker, you froze up.
Oh, no, here we go.
Damn it. All right, we got to wait for Beastly to come back to start our first topic, because I wanted to ask him about the Super NES Mini that he managed to get that nobody else on the podcast was able to score. But, I mean, in replacement for that, we did get blessed with perhaps the best still image of Beastly I've ever seen.
I agree.
He does look happier than I've ever seen him.
He looks happy in still frames. But not only did he get one SNES Mini, he said he got two.
Oh, what a bastard. He probably put the other one on eBay.
No, he's going to pick who he loves the most, I think, out of us, is really what he's going to do.
That means Gary's getting it.
Yeah, that's not fair. I think you should just let it rot on the shelf, to be honest, before he sends it to Gary.
Agreed.
Chuck it in the trash anyway, because it's the garbage American SKU. You know, that's not what an SNES is meant to look like. That thing's trash.
Well. Look who's back. We weren't talking about you at all.
I know you weren't. And I'm going to kill myself. I don't know what's going on, guys. And I was holding it just so when I came back, you guys would know the truth.
If you hold it too long, you're playing with it. Put it down. Put it down. You can't.
I'm going to go blind. I'm sorry.
So you got to plug in both ends. You can't just plug it into the laptop. You got to plug it into the router.
It's the other end is always plugged in. God damn it. I'm sorry, guys. I was on a roll and then I just disappeared, just like a black guy at work. Look.
No problem, BC. We want to hear about your Super NES story here. Like, how was it going to pick it up? Have you played it any? How's it actually feel? Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so Friday
and you can't use the two words awesome or amazing even once.
Damn,
but don't be afraid to use words like wet and slippery.
Ooh, now this is going to be a challenge.
The way it's meant to be played.
Because wet and slippery Super Nintendos break, or at least I would think so. Okay, so September 29th is a day that I've been excited for. Luckily for me, I have an awesome partner. My wife was actually the one who went out and did my pre-orders. I got 2 pre-orders. I'll let you guys know that. So the 29th, when she woke up, she said, "It's today the fucking day." She sent me a text. I said, "Yes, it is. I'm sorry." Because she had to go to 2 different GameStops to pick them up.
Oh, nice.
But when I came home, they were both sitting in my studio, and I walked in here and I grabbed both of these amazing boxes. Now, this is the box that has not been.
One strike. The word amazing has been used.
Damn it! So where are the penalties?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out at the end of the show.
Go one day without playing.
Let's use the Super Nintendo.
Your portable SNES Mini.
This one? Oh, fuck that.
YOLO. Fucking YOLO.
The Yobo gets played. I'm sorry.
It's not the Yobo, it's the YOLO. We've renamed it.
The Yo-No.
Yo-No.
So I came into my damn studio, and there were 2 boxes in here, and there were the Super Nintendo Minis. And I just, I did an unboxing video, but I didn't upload it yet. And I just looked at it for a while. I actually held up the original Super Nintendo to it, so you get like an idea. This is the packaging. This thing is tiny. The Super Nintendo is incredible. I went in my living room and hooked it up for my wife and my kids. My sons came from their dwelling playing Borderlands 2 and Black Ops 3 for some unknown reason to watch us play this thing. And we got down for about 3 hours playing old school Super Nintendo games. Did they feel like the original experiences? Absolutely they did. Talk to
me a little bit about the hardware before you go into the games.
Okay.
There were some complaints about the NES Mini. One of them was very short controller cables. Has that been addressed?
I didn't have the original NES Mini. From what I understand, the cords were only 3 feet long, which seems incredibly short. That's like some inbox HDMI cord. They're so short. These were 5 foot or closer to 5 feet. So we sat in the living room. We sat on the
not like long.
Yeah, they're not long. I wish somehow they had implemented some type of wireless technology, but it would have definitely improved and increased the price. But I'll show you guys exactly what you get out of the box. You get the system. Of course, these flaps here hide the true controller imports.
Those are the Wii remote controller inputs?
They look exactly like that, but of course, for the Super Nintendo controllers, the controllers are identical to the original. They feel just like the original from back in the day, where you couldn't really tell any difference. The power button actually is the real power button, so it works as the original Super Nintendo power button. The reset button is the only way that you can go back to the menu.
So if it doesn't reset the console, it acts like it goes back to the home button. So you have to have that thing within reach. Like
it's pretty much within reach, yeah. And so that's one thing I wish they implemented some type of button on the side of the controller. Maybe kind of like the Yobo, put a button at the very bottom of their controller. Maybe
nothing like the Yobo.
I wish they had done something like that for the menu. As you guys can see, it has a micro USB. That is for the charging dock. It's just a micro USB cord with a standard.
What does it
plug.
charge?
It's not a charge, but it's the
power.
That's
Got it.
Oh, that's okay.
And a standard HDMI port. So the good thing about this, it doesn't take much power to keep this thing going. I just plugged it into my PS4. I used my PS4 DualShock 4 charging port, plugged it into here. Actually, unplugged the HDMI from my PS4, plugged it into here, and I played it that way. So it was
hold on. So what you're saying is, like, I could find a use for my Xbox One and plug that into the USB on my Xbox One?
Absolutely, you can. And actually,
fantastic.
You could buy 2 of these and plug it into both of your Xbox One
amazing
USBs. Yeah, it really does give. Well, then again, I hear there actually are some uses for the Xbox One now. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But we got into the games, Briar. I played a game that came out when my wife was 2. She and I played Super Mario Kart on Super Nintendo. And it brought back memories of just insanity. Graphics looked like hell, but it was very, very fun. It took me back to my teenage years. Played some Donkey Kong Country. I beat Super Punch-Out. And it just felt great again. Will I play this thing every day? Probably not.
So
I don't.
This console actually comes with a previously unreleased game. This is a pretty cool thing because Star Fox 2, it was a finished product. You haven't played it yet?
No.
That is the story. That's the story, Beasley. You're missing out on the story.
I'm just being honest. I wasn't a fan of the original Star Fox. I thought it looked like shit, and I was not on that train.
How dare you? That was the first use of the FX chip. How dare you? Falco, he had some of the most incredible lines. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know, in the game, it was amazing.
God, it breaks my heart hearing that again.
That FX chip as well. It never really did it for me. I was more of a traditional gamer, and things like that. Just the visual aesthetic of Star Fox just did not do it. And I would like to see, what they do in the future. Not with the last Star Fox, but I just wasn't really interested in it. But we did Super Mario World. Let the girls play that. They played Kirby. Of course, I loaded up The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past to show these kids just how treacherous a game can be. Played that for about 20 minutes. My sons want one of these, and they think they're going to get this one. This will never be opened.
Link to the Past is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games of all time because I got that
games of all time.
For Christmas in 1992.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's really good. And even though I know that game practically with my eyes closed, it's cool. There's a lot of randomizers out there, so it'll randomize the dungeons and the rewards that you get. So it's
cool.
Kind of like playing it all over again. A lot of people will do that for speed runs. It's really cool.
And one of our hosts actually made an off-putting comment before we started the live feed today, and said that the U.S. version of the Super Nintendo, or as he calls it, the SNES, is not the real version, and that the UK
you
version.
Don't call it the SNES?
No.
Everyone calls it.
It's not called. Okay, hold on. I get it. You call it the NES, the SNES, but do you call the GameCube the GUK?
Do now. Let's go play some GoldenEye on the GUK.
Look, it's to each his own. I've never called the Super Nintendo the SNES. I've never called the Nintendo Entertainment Center the NES. And I understand, abbreviations. I've just never really been big on them. But yeah, this is the real fucking Super Nintendo, guy. The UK version looks like a gray Ninja Turtle shell. This is the real deal. You got a broke Famicom.
Where was Nintendo based? What nationality is Nintendo as a company?
Japan, but then there's also Nintendo of America out of Redmond, Washington.
There is Nintendo
Washington,
of America,
named after one of the greatest presidents of all time.
They developed this for the United States, for the U.S. audience.
I don't know what third world communist
you have. I think it's because the switches, they tested them on the US audience. They found them too complicated to use. So you guys needed something simple. You could just press it with your donut fingers and just on.
This motherfucker right here. We gonna jump him.
Gary, did your guys' yellow after a long time, or was that just from all the donut glazing from the US? Did you just solve the yellowing of the Super Nintendo problem?
I think it was. No,
he just solved it. Yeah, I can't even get mad at him.
Your fat fucking donut fingers. This guy, dude. Like, let me see your third world version. What do you got with that goofy ass power plug that you guys have that makes no fucking sense at all?
I don't have one, but the kitten's just crawled into the subwoofer, so I've got that. Just watched it get into the subwoofer.
Let's drop that bass, Gary. It's time.
Yeah. We'll get it out of there.
So basically, let me ask you this: you're a retro game collector anyway. If you have most of these games, are the ones that you really want, and obviously, I can't believe you didn't play Star Fox 2 yet, because it is a very different game than Star Fox 1. I think it's worth checking out. I want to hear what you have to think about it next show.
I'll definitely play it just because you asked. Yeah. Sure.
But like overall impressions, the thing is $80. It's a lot of money. Like, what do you think?
Hey, look, how much would the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past be right now in pristine condition?
You get free on PC.
$30 is usually about the fair price. You'll see it upwards into about the 40 range nowadays, but I'd imagine it'll stay at 30 and 40.
Or
like $8 on Virtual Console.
This is one of the best values I've seen in recent history, period.
It is.
You get 2 controllers out of the box. No need to go buy another controller for your friends to play. You get some classic Nintendo games, some of them which I own, that are amazing. Punch-Out!, F-Zero, Super Castlevania 4, Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country. These are all games I have multiple copies of them that I've sought out over the years because they meant a lot to me. And I paid real money for them. Not only are you getting these amazing games, I don't have A Link to the Past. That's an incredible value. That's a game that I've been unable to purchase over the last few years. It's just, I've missed it.
How does everything look on an HD TV?
It looks incredible. They have a pixel perfect mode that I played on. They have a filter to make it look like, TVs of that era with the little fuzzies going across.
Scan lines or whatever.
And things like that. Yeah. They have these little perks that can kind of suit an individual's taste.
Go ahead, DC. I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say I was just gonna put the debate to the test because we've talked about this before, and even if you were to buy the games on the Virtual Console, I mean, there's 30 games on there, 8 times 30,
21 games.
Yeah, 21 games. Sorry. So 8 times 21. You know what I mean? Like, it's still a greater value. If you were to go out and purchase these games physically, the cost that I came up to, and this was just based on eBay, which you don't have to do, was like upwards of $800.
And you can't get Star Fox 2.
Yes, you can in a physical cartridge. It's a reproduction cartridge. It's
not the full version that's on there.
Yes, you can, 100%.
Oh, really?
The game, yes. Before it was even put into a reproduction cartridge, the ROM was dumped. I
thought that was like just a partial version of it, though.
There's beta, but there's also a full version that has been dumped. Yeah, and you can get these reproduction cartridges for $40, $50, $60. It depends on where you get them from. But like that's not Star Fox 2 isn't the big seller for me, in my opinion. It's that you have a great value of these games that are highly sought after. A game like Legend of Zelda is not going to go down in price, just like Contra on the NES won't go down in price. Contra is not a $30 game. It's just that when it goes into a store, if you go into a store, there might not be a Contra there because it sells. It's a game that people want. And another thing too, there's a lot of hacks and mods that come out for these games with like USB storage and shit like that, where you can basically turn it into your own little portable emulation machine. I know that's a touchy subject or whatever, but like Briar said, you can get it for free on PC. I kind of think that's what he was hinting at. So, but
I mean, Super Metroid. Are you
saying that I would suggest stealing a game? Is that what you're insinuating, Wilson?
Most of those games, it is legal to emulate because they haven't done anything with the properties. I think it's like the copyright, I could be wrong, is like 20-something years after the game was released. If they don't do anything with the title, it pretty much becomes freeware at that point.
I'm on eBay right now looking at Super Metroid. The cheapest one I see is for $30.
God, I love that game.
That's a pretty
love
good
that
game.
49, 41, 58. I mean, it's an expensive game. And to get a console with 20 other games, 2 controllers, and a beautiful form factor, the only form factor that matters in the world, for $80, you can't beat that. You really can't.
Boom.
Sorry, Gary.
I'm just not rising to it.
One of the
Stick that
things
in your Vita.
that I'm sure you're noticing, Beastly, on the SNES Classic that you have, the SNES Classic, is that games are probably a little more difficult than modern games.
Hell yeah.
One of Gary's topics this week I thought was pretty interesting. Gary, why don't you take a run at this one?
For sure. Really, it was just something I was thinking about a lot in my own
Cuphead,
time.
perhaps?
Or while playing Cuphead, and while playing pretty much everything that isn't Destiny, where the game aims for you. For me, I was thinking, are games getting harder, or am I just getting even worse than the minimal bit of skill that I had in the first place? So this came about from Cuphead, which is a beautiful game, and Briar and myself have been trading thoughts on this all week, really, or since it came out, about how much we enjoy it, but how much of a bitch it makes you feel. I mean, Cuphead is brutal and relentless. It's like testicle clamps that are just tightened every death and every level you go through.
Oh,
I was talking to Sweep online the other day, and I compared it to a beautiful, proactive dominatrix who likes to step on your nuts.
Yeah, fuck that bitch.
Yeah. It's
Right, just goes.
the aesthetic of it just doesn't match the game, and I've noticed that there's a big trend lately. Like Dark Souls kind of popularized it, and you've seen it with things like Ruiner, which I also bought this week and made me feel terrible about myself. Salt and Sanctuary, the Crash Bandicoot remake, which was notoriously difficult. Strafe, which was, and again, all roguelike sort of games. I mean, is it a new trend or is it cyclical? Because what I've noticed is, like you say, things like the SNES Mini or SNES Mini highlight that actually 16-bit games and 8-bit games, more to the point there, were made punishingly difficult because they were meant to be quarter munchers at the arcade. They're meant to be things that kept you playing and kept you losing. But we seem to have gone through a plateau of games being easy back into more difficult games. And I guess it's a question of Cuphead. You know, do you enjoy being, even if it's an attractive game to play, Brian, have you enjoyed being made to feel that inadequate and pathetic?
Yeah, I do. The thing that Cuphead does, and that not every hard game gets right, is that even though it's very difficult, it's still fun. It doesn't feel like I'm losing because of cheap shot. I was talking about Star Wars, the Super Star Wars, a couple weeks ago, and saying like it was hard to go back to. And one of the reasons it was hard to go back to is it was definitely difficult, but a lot of that difficulty came from just cheap shots, right? Is you'd be running down the screen and all of a sudden, like, wham, something you couldn't possibly have avoided takes half your health bar away. In Cuphead, I never felt like that. I always felt like, as I learned the boss fights or as I learned the levels, I could predict, I could react. I wasn't just getting hit by random shit. It was, stuff that I had to actually. I never felt like it was unfair, if that makes sense. I felt like I had a decent shot of performing well. The controls are spot on, and it reloads instantly. So like when you fail, like it just restarts instantly. There's no like load screen. I mean, it's like a second to reload the thing. So you just keep trying and trying and trying, and then eventually you learn the boss fight or you learn the level. So yeah, I have been enjoying it tremendously, but it is fucking really difficult, and it can be frustrating. Sometimes you just get pissed off. You gotta stand up and take a walk away.
So let me ask you guys, and of course I got some thoughts on this. Cuphead itself, I've seen a few tweets from my co-host. Is this a must-have Xbox One game?
It's a must-have Steam game, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a must-have. I mean,
Thanks,
aesthetically, it's absolutely gorgeous. The music is phenomenal. It's all so like the whole game is kind of based on 1930s animation, right? And it really pulls that off well visually, and with like the filters that it applies, it has like kind of old film stock. And the other thing about it that really nails it is the music and kind of the sound effects. It just sounds and feels like it's stuff from that era. So like it's a very jazz themed soundtrack. You have like individual characters that have their own theme song. Some of them are actually sung by the character itself. Just the title screen, like kind of, it's a song that describes the story of the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's all like
Yeah.
this kind of like 1930s, like kind of I don't know
Merry
exactly.
Melody style, yeah.
Well, it's like it's real jazzy, but it's real like kind of upbeat and fun, like kind of hipsterish jazz. I don't know the name
It's
for
like
it.
Steamboat Willie kind of feel to it, like a
Yeah.
kind of
I mean, it just
Yeah.
looks marvelous. It sounds marvelous. It just pulls off the aesthetic. It pulls off the look and feel it's going for exactly, and the controls are spot on. Like, unfortunately I really hate the Xbox D-pad, the Xbox One D-pad. I did move over. I put a PlayStation control on my PC, and I was having much better luck with that, just because I like the D-pad a little bit better. But man, the controls feel spot on. It feels like it instantaneously reacts to your input. Like it's a damn fine game, but it's hard as nails.
Would you say that it's like not the mood or the setting, like as far like just mechanically speaking of the game? Is it like kind of Mega Man-esque but more chaotic? Like, is it like because like the thing like you were saying was, there were games back in the day that were designed to be quarter munchers at the arcade. Mega Man wasn't necessarily released on arcade unless it was put into a Nintendo Play Choice 10 cabinet, which you could swap out the ROM boards for and stuff like that. But I feel like Mega Man and like Ghosts and Goblins were like one of the first games to do that, where it wasn't necessarily your skill. Like, yeah, skill was involved into it, but it was more a test of your memory, where you get to a certain area and it was semi-scripted battles where you could kind of control, where you could like edge the screen a little bit back and forth and maybe control some spawns of enemies. But from the footage that I've seen, it just looks like a really intense version of, say, like Mega Man, Ghosts and Ghouls, with the whole like side-scrolling shoot 'em up.
Is it more intense than Ghosts and Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins?
I would say the difficulty is on par with Ghouls and Ghosts for the Genesis or for the Super NES, where it's just super difficult. It's a better game, though.
Wow.
To me, it feels more like the way it's set up, and maybe it's worth talking a little bit about that, is that there's two ways the game is played. You've either got Coin Dash, which is a run and gun style level, where you're kind of collecting coins to upgrade your character with certain abilities. But the bulk of the game and where the game is played is the Dark Souls element, which is multi-phase boss battles. So these bosses will have 4 to 5, sometimes 6 or 7 phases that you have to learn and memorize. So you'll get one phase nailed down and the boss will completely change form. Not like he'll shoot an extra weapon. I mean, like, it'll turn from a carrot to an onion and move around to a different place and do a completely different set of abilities.
That sounds like a huge influence from the like side-scrolling or isometric or top-down view, like shoot 'em ups. You know what I mean? You get to a boss in a shoot 'em up, and they have many different phases, and like you said, they'll just completely morph and change and throw. It feels like an entirely new boss fight.
It's actually got shoot 'em up levels too, where you jump into a plane and you're playing like what we used to call a shooter, where you're just kind of this pixel flying around on the screen. You have to, it's bullet hell.
Yeah, bullet hell. Okay, that's perfect. You nailed it.
To me, it feels like playing a little bit more than Salt and Sanctuary, a proper 2D Dark Souls, because you'll load in and it's just like, this is just a boss fight. And
this is more like a 2D
fight.
Dark Souls than Salt and Sanctuary?
To me, it is, in terms of the boss fight elements. Yeah, I mean, you've got very limited story. You just like go and do this action for an individual. And then you can upgrade your character based on the amount of coins you get, but there's a finite amount of coins, and there's more upgrades than there are coins available. So the upgrades that you choose will very much influence the way that you play the game. I don't know. To me, it kind of brings me on to part 2 of this topic, which is, where's the easy mode or God mode for players? Because for me, I love the game. Like, I do love Cuphead, but it's so cruel and mistress. It punishes me so intently and makes me feel so shit. I think there was a comment down there that Busy had said that he knows he'll probably never beat the game. I'd love to see all those boss battles. I'd love to see all the different phases of it, but the stress of having to put myself through it is just too much.
Okay, I'm buying this game. There's no way.
Do you think that games need a way that you could just flick a God mode on every game? Would it diminish the game to be able to do that?
I think it would.
Play through it?
I think it would diminish the game, Gary, if you think about it. I think what they've done here is genius. They've created a game that looks extremely inviting to the eye, very magical, whimsy world, and characters that are reminiscent of 1930s cartoons, but they've imported insane difficulty. And there are tons of games that you can God mode or you put on easy mode and go through. And I think that they created this for a reason. I don't think every game should be easy. And who knows whether or not down the line they get enough complaints and they, do a additional DLC that allows people to play through it, Super Mario style. But to me, this whole thing is so different. Every game has this, easy mode or things that you can do, and you can just walk through it and basically casually play the game. But this is very different. I've watched the videos of the game for the last few months, looking at the way it looks. I sat with my wife for about 10 minutes one night, and we just looked at it like, wow, I haven't seen any game that looks like this before. I didn't know at the time that it was insanely difficult. But to me, those things are
to be honest, BC, it is doable. Like all the bosses that I've encountered so far, I have beat. Some of them have taken me 5 minutes to get through. Some of them have taken much longer. Some of them taken up to maybe half an hour to, really kind of bash my head against, learn all the mechanics, exactly where you need to be. It is beatable. Like every boss I've come up against so far has been beatable. I'm only like 30% of the way through the game so far.
So this is not a short. This is not a short game.
I think it is a short game. I think it is.
Okay, but the difficulty makes it long.
Yeah, it definitely extends.
Which means you get your money's worth. It's only a $20 purchase. And more to the point of the question, Gary, I don't think that we've gotten older and we've begun to suck. I think that we've been spoiled by games that are easy. Back in the 80s, games were hard. When you went and bought, a Nintendo game for $75 and you went home and played it, the game may not have been a good game, but it was going to be a hard game and it was going to challenge you. And we grew up with that. And as, generations come and gone, we've gotten to this comfort zone where everything is, doable. Everything is easy. And if it's too hard, you can pause the game right there and change the difficulty. And we've become, used to this whole new mechanic that everything is doable. And I think it's refreshing every now and then to get a Dark Souls style game, to get something like Salt and Sanctuary, or to get something like this, that, the people who want to play it and beat it, they've got to put in time and effort. And like Wilson said, you got to remember it. I
remember a lot of conversations around the time of God of War, like the first God of War, like the PS2 era, early PS2 era, Xbox era, where a lot of developers were talking about how they were spending all this development time on like the last half of a game, and their metrics were saying that 80% of players never saw that content. So I think there was a shift in the industry to say, okay, we want the whole game to be awesome, but we also want the whole game to be accessible by the players who buy this game or play this game. So they did reduce the difficulty of a lot of games, and that you started seeing adaptive difficulty where if you failed 3 times in a row, the game would kind of get a little easier. You saw the normal difficulty on games become kind of the easy mode that we were more used to, And then you'd see developers come out and say, if you really want to experience this game the way we meant you to play it, you should put it on hard mode, but the default is normal, just so that everybody gets a chance to play all the way through it. So you started to see, the shift to easier gameplay because developers were pissed off. We have all this game that you never saw because you just didn't get there,
Yeah.
Well, like speaking from personal experience, like anytime that I've jumped into a game, and whether it be putting in, I guess I should start off to say there should be varying levels of difficulty for sure in any game: easy, medium, hard, very hard, whatever. However, if there's a game that I'm struggling with and I find a shortcut or an easy route, whether that be a cheat code, whether that be just turning on God mode for that level to get to the next one. The reward is definitely diminished, but it takes away the experience of getting to the next level on your own and being excited about it and like wanting to say maybe not in Cuphead, for instance. I don't know if there's like a whole lot of story to the game, but advancing in the storyline, finding out what's next. Some games, their difficulty may give you a different ending, may give you extra cutscenes, things like that. That stuff keeps me going. But it's, I don't know, like I said, I think there should be varying levels because you never know, like, someone could receive a game for a gift and not know anything about it. This could be their first shoot 'em up experience. So, maybe there should be an easy mode, and it could be their introduction to that type of genre game that could come to be their favorite. But if they have a really shitty experience with it the first time, they're not going to want to, you know. And
if a game's too hard and there's no way to bypass a certain part, you may just get sick of it and never move on with it, right?
Exactly, and it's got to be rewarding. So there has to be a carrot at the end of the stick, whether it's an extra power up, whether it's an advancement in story. Because sometimes just getting to the next level isn't like, it's cool, but it's like, what does that really do for me? You know what I mean? Like, I don't have anything to show for that, you know? So like an upgrade point or something, or just some sort of an ability would be really cool. Like, just to keep you playing and enticed.
For me, I think that's a subjective kind of argument because, you know, back in the 80s, there were people playing their NES and they had to play through these incredibly tough games and they had to figure them out. They had to continue to play them. Some kids got one game a year and it may have been the hardest game of the year and they just had to play it and they just played it and played. There are people who played Dark Souls. That was their first video game. And some people may have shied away from it, but there were also other people who rose to the task and fought through it and mastered it. And so, for me, for a developer to create something, their vision of a game, something that's brutally difficult and incredibly beautiful to see at the same time, I think it's a special kind of recipe. And for them to sugarcoat it or water it down for those who may have walked away from it versus those who stand for the challenge, I think would have been the wrong decision for them. Because I grew up playing tough games. You grew up playing tough games. Briar, you remember how hard games were? We talked about that a minute ago.
Different time, though, Beasley, because when I was a kid, I did get one game a year. So I wanted it to be hard so that I had a challenge for the whole year. If it was super easy, I'd be done with it in 4 hours. I'd be really pissed off. But now I'm an adult. I want to play a lot of different games. I want to experience a bunch of different stuff. And I can sympathize with Gary. I don't know that I agree with Gary, but I can definitely sympathize with Gary here because he doesn't want to spend the next month banging his head against Cuphead just to see everything. He just wants to see everything because it's beautiful and it sounds amazing.
My question was not so much can we make games easier for my stupid fingers? It's more, how would me having a God mode available ruin it for you? I just want an extra option. You can ignore it altogether. You can play it whatever you want, but
when those things are available, normally they just disable any like trophies or achievements you get, right?
Take all my achievements away. Doesn't matter. Just let me play through it.
Just let me see
like I said, for me, I'm just saying it from my own idiot fingers, but also from people with genuine physical disabilities. You're stopping them playing a huge amount of games. Like, let's say I just for whatever reason don't have two capable hands to use a controller, or let's say my reaction time
doing something else.
Exactly. If I want to just jerk it whilst I'm playing Cuphead because the graphics are that damn beautiful, I should be allowed to.
Here's the deal. I totally agree with you, 100%. Disability is something that should definitely be brought into account with the development of a lot of video games. With that said, I'm going to shout out somebody who was super inspiring for me when I saw them play. There's a young man who goes by the name Half Coordinated on Twitch. He has a disability where he can only use one hand. And this dude plays shoot 'em ups, Ori and the Blind Forest. He's got world records for these speed runs with one hand on an Xbox 360 controller. And is one
he's
of the
playing
most
with a regular controller.
He's using the best controller of all time.
Yeah. Well, that's why, because everyone thinks it's so comfortable and stuff. So it was just super inspiring. You know what I mean? Like, this dude fucking kills it, man. Like, and I'm not saying that I get it. Like, if he's got a lot more willpower than I do. You know what I mean? If something happened to my hand, I would probably just complain about it the entire time.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some extraordinary people out there. But with that said, I do agree, man. Like, because not everyone's going to have that ability. Like, if something happened to my hand today, I'm not going to be setting any kind of records tomorrow. Yeah. You know what I mean? We'd have to practically relearn how to play a video game. So to answer your actual question, though, I don't think having a God mode would hinder my experience because I would have to make the conscious decision to turn it on.
The problem is that I may make that decision and then the game is essentially done for me. Right? I may get so mad at some point and just go, fuck it, I'm putting on God mode and then play through the rest of the game and I'm never touching that game again. I know myself well enough to know that I'm never touching that game again. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I respect their decision to make this beautiful brutal game, because you know that is going to turn people off, right? They're going to lose some sales because some people are going to hear about how hard it is and be like, well, it's not really my style. I'm not going to do that. I'll watch a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just thought it was worth talking about. I mean, going from games that are super difficult to games that are super easy and that anyone can play. What's been happening on Destiny this week? Because I hear there's been a faction rally.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so for all of you Destiny 2 fans out there, it's no secret that we got an event this week, and it was called the Faction Rally. So we've had some time, we've played the story, we've done the thing, we've become legends once again, and now the factions are coming back. They are at the tower, and essentially you're doing a lot of the activities that you've been doing, but you get coins that you turn in that you can get specific gear with. There's a full armor set for every class for each faction. There's a handful of weapons, not all of them, a handful. But the twist is, whatever faction turns in the most coins for that week gets to purchase a weapon that you can only purchase through them. So for instance, if you pledge to Future War Cult, and Future War Cult ends up winning, which, I mean, let's be real, if you're doing it right, you're pledging to Future War Cult, otherwise you're a savage, you know what I mean? So you should be turning those into Future War Cult, but, just throwing that out there. So, in other words, if Future War Cult wins, everyone can purchase this pulse rifle. If you were with Future War Cult, you get it for like 1,000 glimmer. If you weren't, you got to pay 50,000. So that's kind of the catch, which in the scope of things, 50,000 glimmer really isn't that much, but I thought it was a funny little, fuck you to everybody else who chose the wrong side. So
and to be clear, if you didn't choose Future War Cult, you did choose the wrong side.
It's true. You would be called this out. It's okay to dip into the new monarchy for the shaders, get your shaders, and then just get out.
If you're vain.
It's true.
I get
it. But basically, my question to you guys, I have a few here, but starting with, how did you guys feel about the faction rally so far? And did you guys think it was did your perception of what you thought it was going to be come to reality? Did it turn out what you thought it to be? Briar, why don't you start?
No, it had so much opportunity, and they made a couple of decisions that really took the bite out of it. The fact that your allegiance is character based basically takes all of the fun out of the event for me. If it was account based, so you made the decision for your entire account, you would feel, I believe you would feel so much more attached to your team, because you wouldn't be able to just have 3 characters, one on each faction, and win no matter what. The fact that it is character based just kind of takes the bite out of it. It takes the rally out of it, because you're just kind of hedging your bets. And I think it could have been a really cool thing if it was account based.
You think it's possible they could change that in the future, Briar?
No, I don't think they will.
That does seem to kind of break the mechanic if you can have 3 different characters for each different rally.
Yeah, I don't think they will. No, I think they've made up their mind on this one, and that's how it's going to work.
Here, I know you kind of
Briar, did you choose all 3 factions as well, Briar?
I don't really give a shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I did.
You're not down with that. I got you.
I did.
Once I figured out that it was character based, I was just kind of like, well, I could just get all the weapons anyway. So,
what's the point?
Yeah, it really. As soon as I found out it was character based, it really fell flat for me.
Gotcha. Gary, why don't you elaborate?
Yeah, my take on it all was just pretty much to echo Brian, massively missed opportunity. My view on being able to choose one of each side is kind of neither here nor there. I see the appeal of making you pledge and making you get behind them from a lore perspective as a community. But for me, it's more the activity itself. To label it an event, I think, feels an incredible stretch. The gameplay of the event is effectively what you've been doing for all other. Yeah, just go to a public event and do the public event. You'll get some additional stuff. There's some variance in that there's a couple of additional public events, but they're very pedestrian public events. They're just a case of stand by a box. And if you stand by this box for, 3 minutes, you'll get a couple of tokens. And people have found like a new Omnigul farm where they go in, they shoot some boxes, and they kill themselves. So that's interesting. But aside from that, there's no major change to the way you do it. You see, my view was that there was going to be an adventure of some kind added, maybe with like your faction leader giving you a voiceover, which helped explain some of the lore behind why you chose that faction. What's really disappointing to me, and I'll sort of end with that statement and see what you guys think, is that I've learned more about the factions from 3 7-minute videos by My Name is Bife on YouTube, where he talks about what the factions are and where their history is, than I have from the entire faction rally itself, and Destiny 2 moreover. And that to me is a failing of the game once more, to not put the lore or the story in the game.
Real quickly, I haven't done all the faction activities. I joined one, but from what I saw, it just didn't excite me. I'd rather play Crucible. I'd rather do other activities than just sit around and do what I feel like I've been doing all this time anyway. So I had no real desire to just stick with faction-based activities or events or whatever they want to be called. I'm turning in coins when I get them, but I'm not focused on this event at all. It just hasn't really pulled me in like so many of the other activities of the game.
I thought, like, I came into this conversation without talking to you guys about this beforehand. Like I said, I've been really busy this week, so we haven't really had a chance to play like any Destiny 2 or anything really. But I was coming into it thinking that I was going to be the devil's advocate and have some bad things to say about it. So I do have some good points that I'm going to make here. I do agree with you guys. Gary, I'm really glad you touched on is this an event? Because in my opinion, we've been doing this shit for 3 years in Destiny 1, grinding for factions to get loot. You know what I mean? So to label this an event, in my opinion, like, it's a little stretched. Like, I was really hoping there was going to be potentially exotic class items tied to a certain level, some sort of a quest, even if it was just a little tease of a quest. I want to hear more Arak Jalal. I want to hear that crazy Russian voice actor. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the dude from Armageddon, the Russian space station guy. He played the devil in Constantine. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's him. Yeah, like, so I wanted to hear more of Arak Jalal. I wanted to hear more of Executor Triple Rec Hideo and the crazy, soothsayer future tellings of Future War Cult, you know what I mean? Because their lore is amazing. Like, there is some deep shit with Future War Cult, like them using time machines to like look back on like when like the darkness invaded our solar system, and like the people their minds were shattered because of it. So like the darkness is even affecting people in a simulation and not like it's that deep. So like I was a little disappointed that there wasn't story, some sort of a little quest line, an exotic class item or whatever. With that said though, it was a good opportunity and a reason for me to get out there and do some public events, because public events, if you got a team of 3, like, forget doing the solo going into the caves and farming that way. It is a very quick way. Double dipping public events is really good. So if you're solo, you get a public event, get your loot, fast travel back to the closest place, and there could be a chance that the event is still there. I found that very successful. One thing I will say though, I'm happy that it got me out there farming public events, because I have been kind of cleaning up on a couple. There's still a couple of exotics that I still need that I've been getting. I will say though, man, those new Monarchy shaders, man, have you guys seen those?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah,
they're
nice.
sexy.
Yeah,
I have Future War Cult gear on my hunter with new Monarchy shaders. He looks
now you're talking.
Fantastic. Hove, last night I was playing with Hove. He was like jaw drop. He's like, "You are stunning," I believe was the words that he used when it was the Trials intro.
Yeah.
And so I've been taking on this whole thing of like a gospel of the Future War Cult. So all night last night, I just turned every conversation into like a Mormon approaching your front doorstep and like asking for donations, or have you heard
about the good
church,
word of the Future War Cult?
The Future War Cult, yeah. And like I kind of stretched it out a little bit, like, but it was a good time. I will say though, like, it's a cool event with a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of ways they could add to it, and it will change. But as far as the pledging thing goes, I don't know if that's going to change. But I mean, they could totally add things to it, like to make it a better experience. But man, I was really hoping for exotic class items. I was really hoping for one story mission with, like Gary said, a voiceover of these people. I want to know how their struggles during the Red War. Like they had,
like
you go to talk to.
The pledge should have been just even an infographic of the lot, just something that told me who the hell this faction is. Because going in, you got the elevator pitch, which was the 2 lines from each person going, "Hey, I'm, whoever. I'm Tits McGee. I'm someone else," and then that was about as much as they told you. Once you picked their faction, you shot containers, and then they gave you armor and weapons, and occasionally gave you one-liners. Like for me, it needed one story mission. It needed one even adventure. It needed your faction giving you voiceovers during the public events, little snippets, drip feeding you lore, something. It needed something, and it didn't have any of that. And that for me was just, I can't defend it. I mean, I love Destiny. I love the game. I can't defend that event. To me, it was a Festival of the Lost level failure.
Damn. Put the nail in that, Gary. Put the nail in that shit.
Yeah,
I'm
I
part
really
of the Future
agree
War
with you,
Cult.
Gary. I really do.
But I chose the Future War Cult as well. So
Of course you did.
Good choice.
You're
You're doing
a rational
God's
human
work.
being.
Yeah, you're doing God's work. I just want to throw that
Even
out
if you
there.
do own a Yoba.
Future War Cult. I gotta get the Future War Cult
Jesus,
skin.
but
for
that's
this
new
thing.
monarchy colours as well. You just need to paint the black bits gold.
You got that right.
BC, you had another topic about Destiny this week. What were you talking about?
Okay. So this is a question. Actually, this topic came from my wife. It was something I mentioned to her last week. I wasn't going to have it as a topic, but she was talking to me about it. And she said it would be a good topic to figure out what we're doing wrong and why it's so different. Why is Trials of the Nine so different than the Crucible? Okay, so here's my little monologue. Trials is a weekend Crucible event that pits 4 versus 4 in a series of fast-paced matches where the team either defends or plants explosives, and I love that mode. Unfortunately for me, I'm pretty bad at it, sometimes playing 3 or 4 full games without my team winning a single match. Yes, it's happened numerous times. The Crucible Quick Play, on the other hand, is a different animal for me, and while I beast most matches, I'm rarely outclassed in the same manner as I am in Trials. Why do these competitive modes feel so different? And I look to the masters of the game to explain to me why.
Care if I start, Briar?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go.
I think like one of the main factors is the stakes are high. When you add rewards that reflect your performance, it makes people play a lot more different. When you add the carrot to the end of the stick, people are going to play as hard as they can and as sweaty as they can to get that carrot. So the carrots are 3, 5, 7, and flawless. 3 wins, 5, 7, and flawless. Each one of those gets you a carrot on the end of the stick. Another thing too is that a lot of people that are PvP players, they define how good, and this isn't everyone, and this may sound a little negative, but a lot of people define themselves and others based upon their performance in Trials. Sometimes they put a little bit too much pressure on themselves to be one of the best, when ultimately, I mean, we've been around a long time, guys. We know anybody could potentially beat anybody on any given day if the settings are right. Everyone makes mistakes. The big guys make mistakes. Like, sometimes connections are against you. Sometimes it's just out of your hands. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a game where you're just raking people over the coals and they're not even reacting to you, there's a good chance that connection's on your side. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like Trials promotes this, like, best of the best, competitive. I can't help it, dude. I start my card for fun, and then I go in and I start getting sweaty as fuck, dude. I can't
Yes,
help it.
you
I'm
do.
a competitive person, dude. I want to
with you,
win. And I don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like I'm upset with someone if, like, we don't perform. It's just in the heat of the moment, man. Like, we're there, we're capable of doing it. Like I said, anyone can beat anyone on any given day. You just have to work as a team. And that's another thing too. When you're in the regular Crucible, there's a lot more people playing around with different weapons. There's a lot more quick play, casual sense. Like, when I go into quick play, man, I'm not using Mita Last Hope or Mita and Uriel's. I'm trying out, you know, against my better judgment, the trials hand cannon, because I watched a video with TV making it look good, even though he's like, I need to stop watching his videos. He makes these crappy guns look so good.
Right.
And like you go in and you just get shit on. But like regular Crucible's different because it's a much more casual set where either you're gonna get rewards or you're not at the end of the game. Whereas in Trials, if you get to 357 and flawless, you're getting loot, and people want to get there. And even though I pretty much have all the loot from Trials of Osiris, like I can't help it, dude. It's my old caveman male dominant. I want to win, and it's not even necessarily to rub it in people's faces. It's a bonding experience of like winning. Like we came together and just, shit on a team that should have shit on us. It's fun.
It's one of the coolest things. It's something that Destiny did that was absolutely fucking genius in year one. I think it might have saved the game by adding like those rewards, those performance-based rewards to PvP, and making a team-based activity where you had to get your team together and then you had to go in and fight. I think, it's really a beautiful thing. But you are certainly coming up against tougher competition, to answer your question, Beasley. In quick play, there's no skill-based matchmaking, or there's very little skill-based matchmaking, apparently. You're just coming against all sorts of people. Maybe they're just playing around with a couple of buddies. Maybe you're coming in with a group of 4 and you're coming up against all single people like who've never played together before. They're not even communicating. They might be new to the game, not know what weapons to use. In Trials of Osiris, you're very likely to see only the best weapons in the game, right? You're not going to see people experimenting too often with, I got this new auto rifle. I've never tried it before. Let's throw it on for a match of Trials of Osiris or Trials of the Nine. People don't do that in Trials of the Nine. It is serious business in Trials of the Nine. You get in there, you're looking for your loot. When I'm in there, I feel like my teammates are relying on me, and I'm relying on my teammates. So there's a certain amount of just performance that everybody's just trying to step up their game in Trials of the Nine. So it is very different experience. But it's very fun. I think it's very fun.
It is. It's very fun. Even though we lost, we got our asses handed to us. I was usually at the top, and we still had a great time.
Teamwork is so fucking key in that mode too.
Huge, dude.
I mean,
huge.
You can raffle stomp some teams where your team just goes off and is fucking about. We had a game like that, Gary, on Saturday with Sweep and JJ Molina, where we were just. I mean, we just got lucky, too. It was like every match we got into, we just stomped everybody. So everybody just, on spawn, just split up and just were racing to get kills. It was like a bunch of sharks in the water just hunting fish.
Damn.
I mean, that's pretty much my approach to Trials. That's kind of the only way I play it. I mean, I've played a lot of Trials through Destiny's lifetime, and I don't play it as a super, super competitive thing. I just go in with guys that I know I'm going to have a good time with, win or lose. And I am the least competitive person here. I have no illusions of being the best at the best. I just play and enjoy it. And for me, I don't know. I think that some of the pain that you're feeling is more not so much how hard it is, but maybe how different it is. And it's something that you're maybe not used to, the style of play. And I think it will come from playing it more. You'll find that you'll ease into it and you'll understand that it's a much slower game, a much more tactical game in competitive than it is in quick play, because your deaths mean something. There's actually aside from a score on the enemy's meter, each time you give away a play, you make the job so much harder for your team to then win that round. And it's a snowball effect. One, definitely with 4v4. I guess you could argue with 2v2 it's a bigger percentage, but at least in 4v4 in this game, by taking 25% of your team out of play, you've taken a significant amount of team shot potential away. So yeah, I think it's not necessarily a harder game. All the things that you guys have said are correct. People come and bring their A game, but it's also a different style of play. And if you've not played a lot of competitive playlist, you'll notice the difference there about how much you have to play your life.
I haven't played competitive at all, competitive playlist at all. It's all been quick play for me.
When it boils down to it, like, yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. It should be about going in with people that you are just going to have a good time with regardless, like cracking jokes, dick jokes, yobo jokes,
Yes.
whatever it's going to be. it's just more of like a heat of the moment thing for me. Like when I'm there,
you're there.
It's I can't help it because, and maybe it kind of goes back to that topic where I was like trying, like Briar was saying that, you know, when it comes to trial, I try to be a natural born leader. Maybe that's like the quote unquote subconscious leader in me coming out, because I see so much potential in every single person that I play this game with. Like, you know, like, yeah, there's going to be people who stand out. There's going to be TVs and real crafties who can, you know, hold their own against 2 or 3 people. But like, as a team, nobody stands in your way. Like, that's the potential that I see. And
you're a fucking leader. This guy got me ready to go now.
Well,
Shit.
you have to work as a team. If you're not a TV, if you're not a Manigator, if you're not a Hovey or a Crafty, you know, like 4 is greater than 3, 3 is greater than 2, and 2 is greater than 1. Anytime that you have team on your side,
that's math right there.
You should potentially win. And I don't match people, you know, that is not my strong suit. But like, my point being is, like, it's not necessarily knowing where the team is. I also have to look at my radar and or not necessarily knowing where the other team is. I have to look at my radar and see where my team is, so that when I duck back into cover, is my teammate there to cover me, or is my teammate right on my ass to where I cannot duck back into cover? Mm-hmm. You know, another thing too is that versus quick play, in quick play, I just react. I just go with the flow. In Trials of Osiris, every move I make with the conscious decision, can I get out of there if shit hits the fan? Where am I going to run to if shit hits the fan? That will save you a lot of time and trouble in your engagements on, you know, not knowing what to do once you take fire. Before every move and every position that you go up to, if you say, how can I get away from here safely, you'll win a lot more of your engagement, because that's huge too. It's not knowing when to kill, it's when to back out. And working as a team is huge. If you got a homie with you shoulder to shoulder, and you're battling a guy, and because of high caliber rounds with Meta multi-tool, your gunshots are now RNG as to who's going to win. You get that guy half health, swing back in as your homie swinging back out. Yeah. He now has to engage someone with full health. You know what I mean? And the rope-a-dope, as I've dubbed it, is huge at winning games. You could still see a lot of that in quick play, man, because sometimes even in quick play, like when we're on a 5-6 game winning streak, you know, the dominant male starts coming out again, and as Gary would say, I want to spray testosterone all over the place and keep this streak going. But you'll see it in quick play too, but not as much, man. It's just a whole different beast.
Well, and let me just say, it's been a pleasure playing with you, Wilson. You are a born leader. You are the fucking Captain America of Revolver. That's not even a joke.
It's not true, man. Like I said, man, just there's not always like a true leader, man. So like I said, sometimes you got to know when to follow too. I don't always have the greatest ideas. There's times Briar's had to bring me down in D1. He'll be like, okay, Wilson, I get it. Fuck that guy. Next round, let's get it. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that guy.
I want my Wilson at his strongest.
Yeah. When we were doing the raid a few days ago, there was a guy, I don't remember his name, who was playing with us, who made like a joke about Wilson being a natural leader. And that's something we talked about last week as well. And it's like, you definitely are. Yeah, Hugo.
It was like, that reluctant natural born leadership there, because we were like, how do we do this phase? And it was just crickets.
Yeah, I think I want to start calling you Captain America, man. It's awesome.
No, man.
You motivated me today, too.
I don't take compliments well.
Wilson wins through strong leadership and team motivation. And I put myself down to just cheating at PlayStation. That's kind of how I've maintained any level of capability. Just buy a Zim 4 and cheat. It's far easier.
Yeah, you've been mouse and keyboarding it, Gary. So, and you're an animal too, man. You're an animal.
Yeah, Gary is an animal, dude. Yeah. Like he doesn't take compliments well either. He kind of brushes them off with that cute little smile and that little English muffin look, you know. And then we just get lost in our own
big
compliment.
English muffin eyes.
He's so gorgeous. I don't even remember what I just said to him. So
straight keyboard trash, man.
Gary is a fantastic player. He says he's not competitive. I feel like on the outside he's not competitive, and subconsciously, without him realizing or not, he's just a fucking animal at this game. Yeah. I've seen it kind of come out. You know, he's very proper. He's very soft spoken. It's usually late at night when he's playing. But I've heard the within Gary's
within
testosterone spraying abilities. Like he's you go in, man. You do. and you do it casually.
I like my PUBG motorcycle tours just to trigger Briar. That's kind of what I'm best at. Is just getting on and kind of sabotaging our team's chances.
You killed us all, you bastard!
It's good. It was a good
I'll
time.
never forget the motorbike in PUBG where Briar's like, Gary, I'm getting really tired of you being on that motorcycle, giving our position away. And then the game ended, and Gary's like, I have to go to bed. I love you guys. We're always like, a little bromance at the end of our sessions.
Yeah.
And he leaves, and Briar goes, I wonder if I was too hard on Gary about that motorbike.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
All right, so we're going to move on to my next topic. And this is one that might sound like it's one that we've done before, but it's really different. It's something I thought about actually last week, and we talked about it after the show, and we decided to bring it up this week. So you guys be sure to let us know what you think in the comments or at revolvergamescast@gmail.com. The hidden perk of digital gaming. Okay, so we all know about the ease of and access of buying digital games, but there's a huge benefit that nobody has ever talked about until today. Anti-theft gaming. What is that? What does it even mean? There was a time when a burglar could steal your console and your entire gaming collection. Now, if your home is burglarized, you can repurchase your stolen console and log into your Xbox Live or PSN account and re-download your entire collection. Buying digital has, in a way, killed the effect of theft when it comes to our video games. And that's something I thought about last week. I was looking around in my studio, and I was like, man, if someone were to break in here, there'd be like $10,000 worth of shit they could just grab and run out of my house. And then I was like, well, I got like 330 games with my PS4. I could buy another PS4 and install all my games so that will never be stolen. And to me, that's a really cool benefit of buying digital games. And I want to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Have you even ever thought of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point, too. And I think another thing, I grew up in a very cushy neighborhood, you know what I mean? It was just kind of the neighborly, oh, hey, how you doing? No one really conversed a whole lot.
That's a creepy neighbor, man.
And so, yeah, we were just creepy neighbors, like, leave us alone. But, like, something that I had kind of thought of, too, was I didn't necessarily have a problem with so-called, like, straightforward, deliberate theft of my games or, like, worrying about somebody breaking into my home. But I definitely had a friend who wouldn't always return the game that he borrowed or that we swapped out for. And I think that's another huge thing, too, that is, kind of would prevent your friend from, because you could give them access to the game. But I do believe that once you go to log in, it gives you, you could potentially have priority and like kind of on Steam, like boot them off the game, so to speak. So it kind of helps out with that. Like, I had never really given much thought to like the whole theft thing, because those games are tied to your account. And if someone would take your system, like, yeah, you'd be out of system. But if once you saved up and got another one, those games would be back. Another thing too is if like you were in a pinch, like you needed some money, like you could wipe that console, sell it, and then if you got a new one, you'd have all your games back. You wouldn't potentially be able to sell your games for
you
money,
never sell your games, yeah.
But your games would be there once you got your console back. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good thought. Like you said, what was the story you were telling Beasley about your apartment a little bit before the show? You were talking about it had bars and just the hilarious story of someone trying to break in.
Okay, so I didn't always live in a great neighborhood. Briar knows the stories of my neighbors stabbing people outside my front door and shit. That happened 2 years ago, and just being in the hood, man. I had to go through my rites of passage in the hood. About 15 years ago, I lived in the heart of Atlanta, and I lived in a really bad neighborhood. And the apartment I lived in had burglar bars on all the windows. And one day I came home from work, and my window was broken. The burglar bars were there, and there was like 3 sticks on the ground in my bedroom, and there was a long stick that someone had stuck through the window, and they were like dragging my video game, my games cases, and my DVDs, and everything they could toward that window. And, I think they may have gotten 3 or 4 games, but it was a very hard process. Obviously.
A game in itself.
Yeah, it was.
Like, I commend them.
It's like playing that claw game at the arcade.
Yeah.
I at the same time, I commend them for their resourcefulness, but at the same time, it also stoops them to an entirely new low of, like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like, what?
Okay, look, I never told you guys this before, but back in, I think in 2003, there was a viral DVD that went viral around the country. It was called Crackheads Gone Wild. This DVD was filmed in the neighborhood that I lived in Atlanta, the heart of Atlanta. And there was a guy on the DVD. His name is Thero. He was the guy who actually tried to break into my apartment. He was the cousin of a coworker. And this cousin introduced me to him, and the cousin was telling him, this guy, he lives over there. He's got all the video games. It was PlayStation 2 shit, right when the PS3 was getting ready to come out. And I wanted to ask him, and I asked his cousin, I said, wasn't he in Crackheads Gone Wild? And he was like, yeah, that was him, but he don't like people to know it. So it was a very famous crackhead. I wanted to ask him.
I'm coming back for a reappearance.
Yeah, he was.
They asked
he
me
was
on
28.
If you Googled Crackheads Gone Wild, anyone? No, just me.
Well,
hold on, give me 5 seconds.
Trust me. The guy's name is Thero. If you watch it, he's 28 in the video. He's standing on the front porch. He's missing all his teeth. And it was him. It's like you see a person on TV and you recognize the face, especially one that's a crackhead face, you immediately recognize him. So I was like, that's fucking Thero. I wanted to shake his hand, but I didn't know if he had crack on it. And so after his cousin introduced me to him, we were leaving, and I said, hey, man, wasn't your cousin on Crackheads Gone Wild? And he was like, yeah, he was, but he don't like nobody to bring it up. And so he had told his cousin where I live.
If I had a friend who was on Crackheads Gone Wild, I would bring it up all the time.
I put that on my business
you're
card.
due for another season, yeah? Like they asked you back, like, star role this time.
Crackheads Gone Wilder.
Yeah, I heard you're gonna get a spot on the DVD title screen.
The very first one. They made a bunch of knockoffs, but I'm talking about the original, very first Crackheads Gone.
Not to be confused with the knockoff.
This is
Rockhead
the real
Ruckus. Don't be confused with Rockhead Ruckus. That cheap imitation bullshit.
Do you know what? I was waiting and anticipating where that story was going because you said it's something you never told us. There was a video film called Crackheads Gone Wild, and this was a confession coming out in the making, man, that just never went the way you were hoping.
Gary.
That's great,
all right, guys.
Man.
It's time to get down to fucking business. It's time to debut a new, hopefully reoccurring segment on the Revolver podcast. And it's called Revolver Decides. And this week, we're going to decide what the best console of all time was. There's some ground rules here. First, a decision must be unanimous among the cast. So we got 4 people here. We have to decide on one console, and we all have to agree on it.
So are any consoles not allowed?
This week, there are no portable or handheld consoles allowed. So the Yobo, unfortunately, has been disqualified.
It would be a surefire win if it wasn't disqualified. There would be no questions.
Also, the conversation does not end until Revolver decides. So we have to come to a conclusion. Conversation doesn't end. Basically, it's a war of attrition.
Okay.
Let's do
it's
it.
already
Beasley, what's the best console
here, so I'm at a disadvantage. I'm going to be honest.
I think Gary's going to be pretty agreeable tonight.
Yeah, let's just go with the Yobo and just make Gary.
Yeah, fuck it, man. Yobo all the way. Yobo.
Beasley, make your case. What's the best console of all time?
I'm a PlayStation absolutist. But of the PlayStation consoles, my favorite would probably have been the PlayStation 2. PS1 was very close, but then again, I've had, this means so much to me. I spent so many hours playing my Super Nintendo as a kid.
Pick one, Beasley.
Damn it! I'm going to have to ride. I can't say 360. I didn't play it too much. I'm going to have to ride with, damn it, I'm looking at my consoles. I'm going to ride with the Super Nintendo, man.
Super Nintendo. Why is it the Super Nintendo?
Super Nintendo has a bevy of incredible games, some of the best, and still stand up to today. Side-scroller adventure games, Super Mario World, All-Stars, Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania, Secret of Mana. Let me just look at the back of my Super Nintendo Mini. Mario World, Star Fox, Super Metroid. It just had so many amazing experiences for me. Donkey Kong Country. These games meant a lot to me growing up. And they still stand up today. Of course, they don't look like PlayStation 3 or 4 or Xbox, but for what they did for the time, it was an amazing experience. I can't say amazing. It was a great experience. I'm going to ride with Super Nintendo.
All right.
Shake
Gary.
things up. I'm not going to go with PlayStation.
Gary, what's the greatest console of all time?
Can we throw a curveball and just say the personal computer? It's technically a console.
God damn
It's
it,
something.
Gary.
It's a unit in your house that plays games. Granted, it does do some work applications, but predominantly it's always been a gaming machine. Right the way back from MS-DOS games through to what we've got now. It's ridden with every generation of console games that you've had all the way through. It's been a constant.
Console. So when you talk all this shit about console peasants, are you also referring to people who play PC as well?
You're referring to yourself, you fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
don't you pull shades of gray with me, motherfucker? I will.
It's a higher class of peasants. It's like, you guys are on the straight white starch loaf. I'm on the gluten-free kind of soya bean loaf. It's kind of like we're all eating bread here, but we're on slightly different types of loaves.
I feel like Gary's really made this easy for us.
PC,
he's disqualified himself.
Yeah.
You can plug a controller into
we'll let
it.
the chat decide. Judge's ruling.
Judge's ruling.
Emulate
chat.
on it. You can play PS4 on it. Oh.
All right.
Yeah,
Wilson.
they say it doesn't count, Gary.
Wilson, what is the greatest console of all time?
Hopefully you guys can still hear me here. I think my internet's going out.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. I'm getting a little choppy for you guys though. I guess when it comes to deciding what the best console of all time is, I have to look at a few things. I got to look at durability. Like, will it break? I got to look at the list of games, longevity, third-party support, and then overall technology. So I'm torn right now.
I don't even know what Wilson's going to pick yet, and I'm already on board.
I'm going to say 360.
I'm torn because Super NES fits all of these, but the technology aspect of it. Like, yes, it was an advancement, but ultimately, I think, Briar, you had said it last week perfectly, it was a Super Nintendo. It wasn't, this, it was a better adaptation of what was successful before it. However, the Dreamcast, in my opinion, was way ahead of its time, dude. Way ahead of its time. There's people that are still doing mods to the Dreamcast that are fucking mind-blowing, dude. Like, the power in the Dreamcast is huge. However, it didn't have... It had some third-party support, but it didn't have any longevity. And, like the games list...
it could have been amazing. It really could.
It could have been amazing, but it was ahead of its time, 100%. So with that being said, I guess I'm going to have to go Super Nintendo, man.
Yeah.
You can have the little one, Wilson.
You guys are all wrong. The obvious answer here is the Xbox 360. Now, let me ask you. Let me ask you a question. Wilson, how many Xbox 360s did you buy over the course of the life of the 360?
With no joke, no bullshit?
No joke.
I would say at least 7.
There you go. I mean, what other console have you bought 7 of? This is the clear winner, hands down. I mean, it's so valuable. It's so valuable that Wilson bought 7 of them. Did you buy 7 NESs? No, sir, you did not.
The
You did
original
not.
still works.
No. Hold on. Technically, I've bought close to 20 of them when I collected. Because I'd pick them up at garage sales if they were cheap. If somebody's like, look, I will give you this
Objection! Leading the witness.
If someone was like, here's a Super Nintendo and a stack of games for a quarter and a Charms Blow Pop, I'm fitting to pounce.
That Blow Pop has to be bought.
In all seriousness, all right, the Xbox 360 definitely had some hardware issues, and yeah, I'm making fun of that. But the thing that makes it the best console of all time for me is Xbox Live. They revolutionized online gaming for console players, period, bar none. PlayStation wasn't doing it. Nintendo wasn't doing it. Microsoft did it. They introduced wireless controllers, which was a big deal. They introduced hard drives for consoles. They did that in the previous generation, but it really came alive with the 360. The 360 hardware-wise, had a real problem, but it changed gaming, and I think it's a huge deal. Also, it had some of the best games of all time. I mean, Call of Duty 4 was unbelievable. Modern Warfare 2 was unbelievable. Halo 3 was unbelievable. Like, if you were a shooter fan for the last 10 years, Xbox 360 was the place to be. The place
Oblivion
to
was
be.
one of my favorite games.
Oblivion.
Of all time.
The fact that they made Oblivion work on the 360, I think, is still an unbelievable thing.
It depends on what part of the world you live in, though. Because if you're in Japan, they don't know what the fucking Xbox 360 is. I haven't seen one.
Right. They're also playing most of their games on mobile phones at this point.
And they're also snapping panties.
Switches,
wait,
man.
so is Gary. My bad.
Okay, so
I do like to snap some panties.
Revolver decides. So we're on completely different. And to be totally transparent, I bought 3 Xbox 360s.
See?
3.
It was so valuable that you wanted 3 of them.
No, one of them didn't work.
Objection!
You didn't lead me. Shit. I bought 2 initially for myself and Kate. One of them got red ringed, and I had to buy another one. And we ended up selling that one when we fell in love with PlayStation about a year or 2 later. But they did have a lot of great games, great technology. Xbox Live really did push the envelope in online gaming and changed really the landscape of online playability. A little bit later, that change was brought over to the PlayStation. But for me, the PlayStation games, the PlayStation library has always meant more to me than the Xbox library. At the time where everybody was playing COD and all these other games, I really wasn't playing them. I was still into the kind of exclusive library aspect of it. But
every console generation has a library. You look at the SNES, it has an amazing library. PlayStation 2, unbelievable library. PS3, unbelievable library. Xbox 360, gorgeous library. But the Xbox 360 changed the landscape of fucking gaming.
He's trying to lead all you guys now.
I'm looking at my list, and it has the games list. It had the longevity because it was around for a very long time.
Sure
it had a lot of support for a long time. It had tons of third-party support.
For
it
sure.
had tons of technological advance. But it didn't have any fucking durability. And that's something that I can't get behind. I could put my fucking Super Nintendo, I could forget it in my jeans and put it through the fucking washer. And that thing will fucking boot up.
This just came out of the machine.
I can't even look at my Xbox 360 with that thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm unattractive or whatever, but I can't even look at it without that thing taking a massive shit on my floor like a dog who's confused and felt like it did something wrong.
Xbox
You're right, Wilson.
cool.
You're right. But it was so fucking valuable that you went out and you bought another one anyway.
Here's the
It
thing.
wasn't a cool
You had a
console.
library of games because you had to fucking play.
It was an
Shit.
unattractive console for one.
Oh, I don't
Which
think so.
one?
I love that inhale shape. I actually think that was a really good
At
looking
first, I
console.
liked it. At
Oh.
first, I did like the shape. I was like, "This is the fucking future." Did you see
a
that
kid's
button
toy,
when I
man.
pressed it? It was all.
HD 1080p gaming.
That
Mhm.
IBM white, the off-white cream color, it was so shit. It looked awful. Absolutely awful. If I had to be pushed off of my PC pedestal and I had to side with a console, lowering myself to you guys' levels, I think there's a good case to be made that the PS4 is the greatest console of all time. I genuinely think there's a good case to be made.
Go
of
on,
it.
But that's a
Gary,
really
go
good argument. Unfortunately, you
Don't
wasted your
interrupt the
vote on the
witness.
PC.
Don't interrupt. Go on, Gary. Explain your perspective on this.
Elevator pitch in a minute, right? With the PS4, it's outsold its competitor 10-1, and the Xbox One is a capable machine. It's a good machine, but people are flocking to the PS4. It is
Right.
filling homes worldwide. We're talking Japanese market, European market, American market. People are taking it. They've taken what the Xbox 360 did with the online platform and revolutionized it again.
What?
Into something-
How did they revolutionize what Xbox did with
Okay,
Xbox Live?
remote play as standard baked into every game. Share play as standard built into everything. The fact you can stream straight from your console, which Xbox didn't have at launch, did it, with
Streaming
the
is a
whole
big deal.
mixer.
Are
Wasn't
you
there.
sure you're not a console peasant, Gary? I'm starting to like
No, I
you
mean,
again.
Fundamentally, and the PlayStation 4, the library that it's got, both on the virtual console that it has, the backward marketplace, as well as the games library on the PlayStation 4 is spectacular. It really is. If you want exclusives, that's the place to play them. I mean, if you look at the all-time best games on PS4, in my opinion, they would stand up in 50 years' time. They'll stand up next to Super Mario. Things that have come out on the PlayStation 4, in my opinion, would stand up to the games of Mario. Obviously, we're looking at them with rose-tinted glasses, but you look at things like, I'm going to call Last of Us Remastered, okay, PS4 title. I know that's got BC on board there.
That's totally cheating. That is totally cheating.
Right,
that was a
Bloodborne.
PS3 title.
You guys talk about that
No,
20
it's not.
frames per second, that beautiful 20 frames per second beast, Bloodborne. You've got right. I'm going to take Witcher 3 as being a generational thing. That's PlayStation, but it's also a this generation game. Grand Theft Auto 5, this generation game, remaster granted.
Yeah, all these games, except for The Last of Us, are available on the Xbox One as well, though.
They are, but they're also available on
Horizon?
PlayStation 4. Yeah, I'm not going to count Horizon.
Destiny.
Yeah,
People still play that?
I don't know what that was.
I don't know.
Irrelevant.
I feel like we are playing a golden age of video games, and I feel like we don't appreciate it because we're in it at the moment. But I feel like every fucking game's a knockout. Used to be 1 or 2 10s a year. We seem to be getting like
Well,
5,
2017
6, 7.
is fucking ridiculous. There's more like 9 out of 10 games that you could possibly play this year.
Every week one's coming out, and people are like, must play game, must play game, must play game.
Like, as soon as we get off this podcast, I can't wait to go play Divinity Original Sin 2 because it's like getting 10 out of 10s everywhere.
I want to pick it up. It's super expensive at the moment. Prices have like inflated everywhere at the moment. But there's so many good games coming out. I mean, that's definitely one of them, Divinity. But it feels like the generation that we're living in right now has more knockout games than the SNES had. You're looking at a machine that has had its entire life cycle and cherry picking the 30 best titles from it or 50 best titles from it. We're getting 50 amazing titles every single year. I don't know. I feel like we're looking at it rose tinted.
He has a very valid point there.
Okay, here's the deal. The wind's blowing hard here, and I'm just a feather because I'm all over the place. You guys are fucking with me, all right? I was starting to get on board with Briar with this 360 thing, but you know what? Fuck 360. I can't put it in my washing machine.
360 is
nope. It's out. It's out.
It's out,
put it in my
Briar.
washing machine. It's out. Gary, on the other hand, I need to verify something before I make my decision. Will you say Sony? Just say Sony.
Sony?
I'm convinced.
PlayStation 4, the greatest console of all time.
I do not agree. I do not agree.
Wins it.
What do you object to?
The PlayStation 4 is an awesome console, right? I don't really have any complaints about it.
Exactly.
I even really enjoy my PlayStation 4 Pro. But I just think the Xbox 360, it revolutionized gaming with Xbox Live. I think Xbox Live is a fucking huge deal. It changed the scope of what video game playing is.
I agree, and you make a good point. The Model T changed the way transportation was done, but it's not the fucking best car ever.
No, it is, but it changed the way that transportation was done.
And Gary, don't you name off some British bullshit car that you think is better than ours, all right? Before we go any further,
Wilson,
all right?
If you had a choice between the car you're driving or you could drive around a Model T for the rest of the year, I'd fucking know in my heart you choose that Model T for the rest of the year.
You're so convincing. I don't know myself anymore. You guys just...
To be honest, I'd drive any other car than mine at the moment because I drove it into the back of a cement truck and it's not looking good at the moment. If I take that Model T, as long as it doesn't have a dented bonnet, I'd be happy.
You gotta stop playing the Vita while you're driving, man. That's just bad news.
Playing Gran Turismo?
Yeah, your car isn't remote play, bruh.
Doing IRL snapping panties. That was just the problem. Yeah.
People are looking over in the car. What's he doing? Oh no, guys, snapping panties or some shit. Like, what's it look like?
Well, look,
Sad time.
this is how I'll destroy Briar's argument and end that aspect of the conversation. The internet alone is different from a video game console. Of course, the Xbox 360 revolutionized Xbox Live when we take into effect the internet. But there will come a time in the future when the Xbox Live on the Xbox 360 probably won't even be active anymore as console generations move forward. I don't think that using that as an argument to say that's the best console of all time is a valid one when you look at...
I've got another one. I got another argument. I've been saving this one in my back pocket.
Oh, no.
It's also got the best controller in the history of console gaming.
That's subjective.
No.
It is objective. It is objectively true.
No. Again, it depends. Right, with your big old bunch of banana hands, maybe. But my small, delicate, childlike hands work so much better on like these other controllers. The Xbox One controller, which granted is not in the game here, that for me, you've said that feels like a torture device and it isn't comfortable. this perfectly fits my dwarf-like fingers.
I love the
It's
Xbox One
amazing.
controller. I absolutely love the Xbox One controller.
The Xbox One controller is a worse version of the Xbox 360 controller.
Improvement.
It is not an improvement.
I'm going to ride with Gary. He sided with me on PlayStation. It's way better than the 360.
Specifically, the wired version of the Xbox 360 controller, I think it's one of the most comfortable controllers ever made, and it functionally does everything modern controllers does. Too. I think it's one of the best. I think it's the best controller ever made. The wired Xbox 360 controller. I think Sony really innovated with the DualShock controller with the PlayStation 1, and then the Xbox 360 controller kind of perfected that form.
I'm going to be reading the comments from you guys down in our Twitch chat.
Scuff is now making it for the PlayStation 4. Like they're basically.
Let me know.
They made the Scuff Impact, and it's basically just it's an Xbox 360 controller for the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
It's an Xbox One controller.
B. Kirk said the Nintendo 64 controller was the best Damn, I couldn't even get through that sentence.
Yeah, that's because it's goddamn ridiculous. That controller was.
You guys let us know in the comments what you think the best console of all time was, and I will.
We got to decide. This conversation does not end until
you
we
can
decide.
get a Zim 4 and you can use an Xbox 360 controller on your PS4. How's that?
Well, in regards to the N64 controller, I didn't know whether to play video games with it or try to pleasure myself or someone with it.
Both.
Damn.
The correct answer is both
At
of
the
those
same
things are
time.
the correct answer.
Inner Black Ninja, who may be on the show next week, hopefully we can get him to stand in for our brother Wilson, said the Switch Pro controller is the best controller ever. I've never played with that before.
Which
It's a
Pro
good
controller
controller.
is a damn good controller.
Wow.
It is a
It's
damn good controller.
Someone said the
It's
Wiimote.
$80
You know, that's a
fucking
joke.
dollars though.
Damn.
I mean, they're all inferior to a mouse and keyboard, but I mean, if I had to sully my hands with a controller, I don't think the Xbox 360 one's the one I'd go for. I honestly feel like I've played more games on the PlayStation 4 controller than I have the 3. Well, I don't even own a 360 controller. It's not my bag.
PlayStation
So
4
if you
controller
had
is
to choose a
good, but the
controller, Gary, would be the
reliability is
PS4 as
terrible
well?
on the thing.
If I had to choose one, if you held a gun to my head, it'd be the Xbox One controller. But that's
Ew.
just
Ew.
convenient. It fits my tiny, freakish hands. My fingers are not long enough to work effectively. On a PlayStation 4 controller, right, if I hold this up here, my finger just does not reach all the way over that shoulder button. Look at it. Struggling.
Look at it. It says- I will say that this was the controller, the very controller,
There it
Gary,
is.
that I used
There it is.
to slay those elitists on the Destiny 2 PC page. Just look at it. All of its
Say
glory.
it again,
It
Wilson.
still has a bit of salt on it from those
Still
keyboards.
kicking ass after all
I
these
should-
years. Best
I should
controller ever.
clean this.
Hashtag best ever. GOAT.
I do. I gotta get with behind you on the controller, dude. But I cannot, like, the fucking horrendous times that I was in the middle of a game and that shit red ringed on me, or the countless amounts that I had to repair, that I had to like reflow the motherboards or like put new thermal paste over the processors and stuff, and like I just can't get behind that. Between Xbox 360 and not even PS4 but PS3, like I had one PS3 to the 7, 8 360s that I bought. And granted, yes, I did have to reflow the motherboard on that one too, but it stayed good for the longest time. Like I'm pretty sure it might even still work if I dug it out. But I don't know, man. Like it just burned my ass so bad with that red ring of death, man.
You know, when you have to replace a console numerous times, you know, doing the towel trick or doing thermal paste, it can make you look at the console a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I mean, also, if you go with the 360, you're supporting the work of Don Matrick. Fucking
that
Don
dude.
Matrick.
No, you're
Zumba
not.
bitch.
Don
That was his
Matrick.
baby.
No, it wasn't. Don Matrick came in halfway through the Xbox 360.
He fucked it up.
And he fucked it into the ground
Yeah,
with no lube.
Xbox One is Don Matrick's baby.
It was.
All right, I can read the tenor of the room. I knew it was a long shot to get Beastly to ever agree to a Microsoft product.
Hey man,
That was a fucking long shot to
I
begin
went
with.
Nintendo, and Gary made, you know what? Gary made a fact-based, intelligent argument, and he swayed me in his direction under duress. I'm going to go with Gary and say that the PlayStation. I can't even say this. PlayStation 4 is the greatest console of all time.
I think that's ridiculous. It just doesn't have the library compared to some of the older consoles.
It also hasn't been like
It's mid-June.
How many years has it been into? Has it, because like what, the 360 was how many years? 8, 11? How many
9.
years is that thing out? 9 years.
9,
PlayStation
yeah.
4 hasn't been out for 9 years, has it?
It's going on
Been
4.
3
Yeah.
or 4, yeah.
In
So if you look
November-
at it in that aspect, like I totally hear what you're saying, but like I'm gonna have to agree with Gary because he made. I agree with Gary. I can't get behind the Red Ring of Death, and also Gary did not make fun of America and use words like fat fucking donut fingers. So
I did
All right.
say
Wilson,
banana
you've
hand.
convinced me. Gary's restraint has pulled me in.
Yes. Once again, Gary has fucking controlled the entire cast.
I will say, Briar, though, you did it. You and Gary were pulling me back and forth across the line there. I'm gonna say you did.
And see,
I just
he
think
started
we're
out.
not
He started
looking-
out with me. Wilson started
We
out with
can't
me.
see
You
the
guys
wood for the
pulled
trees, man. We are living in a golden age of gaming, and that's all I'm saying is we are 50% of the console life cycle we've had.
My
and we've
biggest problem, though, is that
such good games.
like we're talking about 4 years of games as opposed to 10 years of games on other consoles. There's such a broad library on other consoles.
Yeah, but I feel like we're being forward-sighted, let's say, to think that imagine in 5 years' time what broad library we're going to have on the PS4, and we've already got this front-end library. You've got
What if the
PSVR, you've got
PS5 comes
Pro.
out in 2019?
Fuck that, man. It's not coming out 2019. Beasley was wrong. Hashtag. It's coming out 2020.
Hashtag
Well, damn.
Beasley was wrong. Let's see that one
Yup.
spread across the internet.
Get it trending, guys. If you're on Twitter, put hashtag Beasley was wrong with everything. If you're snapping pictures of your food, hashtag Beasley was wrong.
Yeah.
I love you all. Fuck these guys. So look, check this out.
Hashtag Beasley was wrong.
Beasley was wrong.
Wrong. This is just 2017. I'm not going to go through the gamut, but Gravity Rush 2, Tales of Berseria, Yakuza 0, Neo, Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata, Persona 5, Dragon Quest Heroes 2, Ni no Kuni 2, Death's Gambit, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, which is incredible, Next Machina, Death Machine, Pyre, Uncharted, The Lost Legacy. Come on, Briar. You can't fuck with that. That's just 2017. Shit.
Come on, you're gonna put that up against all the games on the Super Nintendo or all the games on the PlayStation 2? PlayStation
No.
2 probably has one of the greatest libraries of all the consoles, and I'm surprised that nobody's really fighting for the PlayStation 2 because I think there's a very good argument that could be made for that console.
PS2 was honestly it was right there with me with the Super Nintendo. But you know, for me, the fun that I had, I went with the Super Nintendo because that's probably where the most of my memories, my fond memories of gaming are. But yeah, PlayStation 2 had an amazing catalog, and I'm not talking about all of PS4's catalog either. I'm just talking about 2017, and who knows what's going to be coming in the future. So maybe at the end of this life cycle, when Revolver Live is at episode 300, and we're on PS5 and Xbox One XYZ.
I just for fun, I just Google searched the best Xbox 360 games just for fun. I've given up this, but Red Dead Redemption.
Have you though?
Grand Theft Auto 5, Grand Theft Auto 4, Skyrim, BioShock, BioShock 2, BioShock Infinite, Halo 3, Fallout 3, Portal 2, LA Noire, Halo Reach, Mass Effect 2, Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3, Batman, Arkham City, Arkham
Only
Asylum,
named 4 exclusives so far.
Call of Duty, Fable 2, Assassin's Creed. I mean,
This guy
Left
cut
4
his
Dead.
mic.
Halo and Gears
Left
of
4
War,
Dead.
That's all you said.
Dude, but all those games are on that console.
They're good
Yeah,
games.
well, Yeah, but
They're
They're
good
amazing
games.
games.
They're on PS4
Borderlands,
as well.
Borderlands 2. Not all those games are on
Right.
on
Borderlands
PS4.
Yes, they
Phantom
are.
Collection.
Yes,
No,
they
they're
are.
not.
Only 4 of those. Name one that's not on PS4.
BioShock.
Halo.
Halo.
BioShock is. You've got the
What are you talking
HD
about?
collection.
What's in that cup?
Grand
Brian?
Theft Auto 4, Red Dead Redemption, Portal
Red
2.
Dead Redemption on
They're
the
all on
the Virtual
PS3.
console.
You said PS4. You keep changing the fucking target, Beasley.
I'm moving the goalposts. You know Xbox. Look,
You just said
360,
PS4.
I meant PS3. Every game you mentioned besides Halo and Gears of War was on PS3. So
Yeah,
you
but
can't
nobody's
use-
fighting for the PS3.
Yeah, but
I'm fighting for the
can't-
Xbox 360.
A lot
You
of the
can't
stuff
use
that-
multi-
I'm not
Exactly.
comparing the Xbox 360 to the PS3. I'm comparing it to the PS4 and the SNES. The other two consoles that are being argued for. I'm
A lot
just
of the stuff
saying,
that's been brought
if you
up has had
talk
fantasy-
about a library of games, Xbox 360 has a fantastic library of games.
I think
I
a lot
can't
of
get
them have
behind the
had better
PlayStation 2
sequels.
because I had a lot of disk error. I had a lot of hardware issues with my PS2 until the super slim flip top one came out. You know, it's probably because it was in our basement and it was dark and damp, and we were like burning incense and it was
That's
dusty.
not all you were burning.
Yeah, burning other
Wasn't incense.
other things. You know, my God. You saying my PlayStation 2 was stoned? Is that what you're getting at?
Hey,
Hey, you said
I'm
it,
not
not
judging.
me.
Fair enough. I rest my
How much
case.
of that? Remember that screensaver on the PlayStation 2?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know.
You didn't even need it to work
Right?
back in the day. It's just-
Man, just reset.
oh, my goodness.
All right.
You make a good argument, Briar. But for me, for a console like that has a competitor with the same games, that kind of takes away from the magic of that particular console.
Well, we're not comparing it to the PS3. We're comparing it to the PS4.
I
Dead
don't think-
Space, the orange box,
And all I'm hearing is a lot of conjecture and salt here. We've already lost.
Fallout New Vegas.
He's talking to you, Briar.
We had him. What the fuck, Google? You brought him back in. You
Street
just had to
Fighter
Google that
4.
shit. We had him.
Google,
Destiny.
Destiny. That dead game.
All right. I'll just to end the conversation, before Tuesday. I guess I'll go with the PS4. I think it's fucking a crackpot choice, though.
Is this technically to be continued? Because I don't
No.
want to end it if you're truly not. This is breaking the rules. You have to be convinced.
Yeah, Briar.
I mean, you're not going to convince me. I will unanimously agree that the PlayStation 4 is the best console of all time. I think it's fucking horseshit. But
Wait a
I'll
minute.
say it. The words will come out of my mouth.
I think this was botched from the beginning. I think we should have said a console whose life cycle is over, because we could
Oh, here we
potentially
go.
still have a
Rules.
lot to come from the PlayStation.
PS4 could.
I'm not saying continue the conversation. I'm just saying for future reference, we might need to lay down a few more guidelines here,
ground
because
rule.
comparing PS4 to we can only compare what we know of PS4 now.
Yeah.
We can't predict what they're gonna do or what could potentially knock us on our ass in the future,
like
or piss
comparing-
us off,
PC.
You know what's not on the PS4? Any Mario games, any Nintendo games. You guys gave up the SNES so quick. You're so quick to abandon it. So quick.
Look,
Makes me sad.
Wilson,
Makes
I
me
agree
sad.
with you. It's like comparing a person who just died at 81 to a newborn baby. You don't know what the baby's going to do. Are they going to become the president, a serial killer? You don't fucking know. And so at that,
Both.
when you take that into account, both, yeah, presidential serial killer. It's a new show, Dexter.
Dude,
season
oh
four.
man. I'm tuning into that.
I don't know. I think we need to stop living in the past, man. Them games are done. They're gone. Let's rid the nostalgia, brush off the cobwebs.
Hey,
They were
man,
good games.
nostalgia's
you mentioned
big,
things like
Gary. It's a big thing.
you say
People love
Skyrim.
it.
We've had a legendary edition. You say GTA 4. We've had GTA 5. You say Bioshock. We've had the remaster. All them games are being played again with better graphics. Let's
Yeah.
just leave the past where it lies and move on.
Fuck
the
the,
PC.
past is what he's saying,
Yes.
Briar. That Xbox 360 bullshit. I knew PS4 was going to win. I knew it the whole fucking time. That's why I said Super Nintendo. I was just waiting for it to come around. Good look, Gary. God damn it. Where's my PlayStation shirt? Get it in here.
I think it's
Briar
time to
does
move
not
on.
look convinced. He looks
We need to
very
move on.
uncomplacent.
Briar
as
rather
a matter
start
of fact.
swinging
He looks like
faces
a-
like
I,
that.
I would
Crawling.
much rather, like, if we had landed on the SNES, I feel like a strong argument could have been made for the SNES. But a PlayStation 4 that's 4 years old, you're going to give that the greatest of all time title?
Listen,
That is
man,
lunacy.
you're just a
Same
guy,
way.
Briar.
The same.
That
look,
is lunacy.
I reckon BC's the type of guy that would make this statement for the PS4 being the greatest of all time, and Mayweather being the greatest boxer of all time as well.
No, I can't stand Floyd Mayweather.
You can't.
That's
no.
like hanging
My
like the GOAT
apologies.
badge on Brady after his first Super Bowl win. Or, it's like, it's premature. You can't start talking about greatest of all time before it's done.
Listen, Briar, it seems like this conversation is a little ahead of your time. I don't think you're ready for this conversation. I think you created a topic that your mind wasn't ready for. And unfortunately, you haven't taken into account that Gary's the smartest guy you know. After all, you spent untold thousands of dollars because of this man. He's convinced you to buy VR headsets and upgrading PCs. You follow his lead, and this is what's been going on for the last fucking 2 years. So just continue to follow. He said PS4 wins. Just accept it.
I have to settle for PS4.
No, I'm not going PS4. Fuck it. I'm not doing it. I will not do PS4. It's fucking craziness.
I'm going back to PC and eliminating myself from this fucking conversation. You guys sort it out.
I'm going with PC.
What? What the fuck?
I'm not going with a current gen console. That's craziness. You got
PC's
the
a current gen
SNES.
console.
Yeah,
SNES. All right, I'll go with the
PC's
SNES then. I will rally against with the SNES. But the PS4, that's fucking crazy. How can you say it's PS4?
You know what? I was just kidding about everything I said. I knew the Super Nintendo was going to win. That's why I had two of them right here. Look, Super Nintendo, greatest console of all fucking time.
You got Chrono Trigger. Look at Interblack Ninja is just listing off amazing games. It's the console so good they released it again this year.
Yeah.
This year.
Like they did the Nintendo last year.
Super Metroid.
I don't even know myself anymore.
You got Super Mario All-Stars.
What did you just do here? I feel like I need to go and lie down after this topic.
Now I'm not fighting for a cause, I'm fighting against one.
He's fucking the man. That's it. I told you, man. I'd say PC, so I'm taking myself out of the running. For me, all of them are equally inferior. So pick one from the inferior pile.
It's good to
and
get
let's
you
move
back,
on.
Gary. Get the fuck out of
This
here.
may have been a tough one to lead with this reoccurring topic.
It's great.
All right.
All right. So, what are we going to agree to as an entity, as
SNES.
a business?
I feel like you guys have let Gary seed in your mind this awfulness that is the
He made
PlayStation 4.
great points. I think he didn't make great points. He made great points, and his points were valid and fact based and logic based.
Those were mine.
Yours are bullshit.
It boils down to me with I guess I gotta see. I'm torn again because I'm like, oh well, playtime will settle this difference in my mind, and I've probably played the two equally, man. Like
Between what, the 360?
Super Nintendo and PlayStation.
Oh,
Well, when you take into account that the Xbox 360 was red ringing people within the
I'm
first,
off the 360. I understand. I'm never gonna win the
Thank
360.
God.
just
I'm
let me
off
just
the
say,
360.
it was red ringing people within the first 12 months, and Microsoft was trying to help people within that first year, but it continued to domino and snowball effect. How many PS4s have crapped out on people?
I've had two die. Oh, PS4s? I've had one die.
I haven't had any die. They're all alive and kicking. And
Well, you're not a
enjoy-
hardcore gamer like I am.
Oh, fuck you.
You see, the PS4 burns out with the amount of skill that the player is using in the game. You see, Briar exerts a high level of skill, and he's just burning through
He
consoles.
goes
again.
Super Saiyan when he grabs the control. Is it really? You really hardcore, Briar? I'm sorry.
You know what never has broken on me? A Super Nintendo. Never had one break.
Yeah, mine either.
That's the thing. I haven't had a PlayStation break yet either. Mine sounds like shit when I turn it on. It sounds like a pleasure device.
Mine sounds worse than
on.
that.
It's turned more yellow than like the ceiling of a coffee shop with a bunch of smokers in it.
Yeah, see how
Well, you know
yellow-
that's why. It's because of the fat fucking donut fingers. Like Gary said, he solved the
Gary
riddle,
has
man. It's
exposed
too
the
much.
truth.
It's too much grease and freedom that makes that color. It's-
It's not grease, it's freedom sauce.
we should make something called freedom sauce. I like that.
My
Not for
Yobo's
Gary,
still
though.
kicking too. I wish I could have included this, but I would have had to fight
Oh
with
my
Gary over
God.
the PS Vita. We would have had to
Yeah,
fight.
how many Super Nintendo adaptations have there been compared? Is there a knockoff PlayStation 4? Have we seen the equivalent? Because there's always like I've seen a Chinese knockoff Wii.
I've seen the
knockoff Wii U.
PSVs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I've
have we seen a knockoff? Has it gotten to the point where it's gotten to official bite status where they gotta take a bite out of it and be like, we're gonna make the SP4 just so it. Have you noticed that they try to label it so that it does fuck with unsuspecting customers, like some of these knockoffs, like the Wii with 3 eyes in it, and
I think it
So-
was one called the Will, but yeah, the L was lowercase, so you just couldn't tell.
I have to check that out. The
All right, so
what are we gonna settle on, guys? Here, because even if I sway Super Nintendo for sake of the conversation, we're not gonna sway Gary.
no, Gary.
I think Gary's
was-
easy to be swayed. Gary,
Yeah, Gary-
Super Nintendo okay with you?
Whatever the fuck you want, man.
See?
I'm really.
Gary
told
wants to
you,
go to
my-
fucking
my-
bed.
Let's
My
lay this
view on
for
it is
Super
that this
Nintendo.
is-
Super
Super
Nintendo?
Nintendo.
Super Nintendo!
Super Nintendo is Revolver Live's best console of all time. We will rehash this
Fucking
conversation after the life cycle of the 8th generation consoles, just to see how things went when we're all old and gray. Everyone besides Gary, because he'll probably never go gray.
I just live off the salt of.
Are you
my
saying he's
enemies.
going to die an early death? That's fucked up, Beasley.
That's not exactly what I meant, but yeah, sure.
I meant that he was gonna maintain that sweet little baby face forever.
His son's
Lives
going to
through
grow to the age he
sleep
is now,
deprivation
and they're both going to
on
be
a
the same
Monday.
age.
Man, I feel
Right.
like we were like walked right up to the ledge of the cliff and we're like, oh, let's all do a suicide pact and jump together. And then we're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Let's just
Cooler heads prevailed. I think we're better off now.
let's not drink the Kool-Aid.
You know
Let's
what?
put the cup down.
I heard this John Joe guys makes really shitty
Jonestown.
Kool-Aid.
That
So
said,
Gary,
cheers.
he said you tried to fucking suicide bomb the cast, man. I was with you, Gary. I was with you.
I'd have happily
I was ready
drank the
to drink
Kool-Aid
the
and been
Kool-Aid, lay
in a
down.
better,
You
a
sniffed
better place.
the faintest scent of a PlayStation Winnie. You jumped on board like crazy. You're a full bandwagon on that PlayStation train, Beasley.
I only went to it out of.
You're like
default.
cannonball, motherfuckers.
You guys are just so convincing, man. You guys are like peer pressure. Like, just try it once, man. Everybody's doing it. Look, man, Beasley was all about Super Nintendo. Now he's all into PlayStation, man.
PlayStation. Shit.
Yeah, and then I come over and Beasley's like, I don't do PlayStation no more, man. I'm all about Super Nintendo. I felt juked. We need to move on.
All right, let's move on.
I don't fuck with any of you. The
We
next
love you,
topic
Gary. We
on
love
our
you,
agenda,
All right.
education, which you guys obviously need in the best console, but doesn't matter. We've left that behind. Why aren't there more games that focus, or the more games that use themselves as a medium for education? And this actually came up this week. There's a game in the Steam sale, $7. Buy it. Absolutely buy it. If you've got kids or just yourself that want to get better at typing, pick up a game called Epistory or Epistory or Epistory. I don't know how to pronounce it, but whatever. I'll type it in the chat. It's a game that's like paper art game. Looks like origami. Little girl riding a fox around. You kind of control it as a freeform ARPG, but you solve riddles in the game by typing what comes up on the screen. It's almost like Typing of the Dead. Have you ever played a game like that? Do you remember
have it.
the House
Yeah.
of the Dead game? But the developers have designed it as a game first and a typing adventure second. Man, I am so addicted to this game. It is amazing. The soundtrack, the visuals, everything about it. It's like playing Journey for the first time. Remember playing Journey?
Mhm.
Kind of that experience, that journey, that walk. And it got me thinking, games like Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade really educated me on what mental health problems could manifest as. Minecraft itself, probably one of the biggest games of our generation, at least, it is effectively a creative arts tool. It's not really a game. At least it wasn't. Well, we've lost someone. He's gone off to download Epistory, so we've lost
Yep.
Beasley.
That sounds awesome. I'm out.
Convinced. Fuck you, I'm
He's
going
out.
to play my
Fuck you,
SNES.
PlayStation 4 haters.
The question was, why don't we see more of it? And then second question was, what have you learnt from a game? Because I know that I've learnt a lot more about upskirt Japanese schoolgirl photography from Galgun. I feel like I'm an expert at it now in my day-to-day life. So what's your guys' thoughts on those two topics? I'm really interested to hear.
Really glad you brought up Minecraft, because I think creativity is a form of education that is not necessarily not encouraged as much as it should be, but I don't think it's as openly accessible to young people as it should be. Sure, you have your art classes and things like that, but I think creativity is a huge learning tool. Huge. And that's what I think Minecraft did perfectly. Unfortunately, like when it comes to educational games, you had brought up Hellblade. That blew my mind. Like, it's not always like a direct education. Like, this is what we're teaching you. It's not like, what did I had bring up earlier? Was it Donkey Kong Jr. math? Where you're literally adding, 2 plus 3 and stuff like that. Yeah, man, like it's there. I think there's a lot to be said about games with an indirect educational message, and I think you nailed it with Hellblade right there. Like, it's not necessarily like, hey, we made this game to potentially teach you about mental illness, but that's just kind of the way it came out. So I don't know. That's a very, very that's a tough question, man.
Just real quick note, I do realize the cams are messed up. As soon as Beastly comes in, it'll kind of fix itself.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Brian? Do you see it as a powerful platform? You loved Hellblade.
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. But it certainly wasn't marketed as a educational game, and I think that's really why you don't see as many of them. Right? Is that as soon as you market a game as an educational game, you can expect like 0 sales on that game, right?
But why though? Because parents want to buy games for their kids, right? And kids just want free games.
Yeah.
So if you could get
they don't want educational games.
No, like if my mom would have came home from Blockbuster and been like, I got, Sesame Street, Mario Fun with Letters for Super Nintendo, I'd have been like, can we go back to Blockbuster and get something else? Like, kids just don't want to play it. Like Briar said, you attach the stigma of educational to it, and kids want action. Kids have a short attention span.
You spend all day at school. Last thing you want to do is come home and spend your free time playing an educational video game. Part of that is probably the stigma of the educational video games not being that good, because it wasn't always that way. When I was a kid, Carmen Sandiego was really popular.
Was good.
Oregon Trail was really popular.
Ooh.
How many times did you die of dysentery?
Many times.
Many times. Do you guys remember Sticky Bear for the Apple II? Do you remember Sticky Bear?
I remember him in Starsky and Hutch.
Snoop Dogg played him in the remake, I think. Yeah.
That was Huggy Bear. My bad.
I would like to see. Okay. No, I'm starting to see the bigger picture of your question here. I would like to see a game that inadvertently, and I'm gonna pull the Hellblade thing here. Hellblade inadvertently educates you about mental illness. You don't necessarily know you're going into it and you're going to have a better understanding of this. I would maybe like to see a game that would kind of maybe touch on, oh God, I probably shouldn't even say this, but like racial equality, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Maybe like something that would address the poverty situation here, throughout parts of the United States. Something that is still fun to play, but at the same time kind of makes you take a step back and appreciate what you do have and the fact that you are playing the video game. Like, I don't know, maybe that's too cheesy, but like there definitely needs to be a way to bring things to people's attention that can interest them. Like Hellblade, like I'm not going to Google many things about mental illness unless it, unfortunately directly affects me, or if I meet someone and I'm like, I felt very stupid or very insensitive and I need to educate myself. Where as like a game like Hellblade, you play it and you walk away with a whole new understanding and a whole new respect for those going through that kind of stuff. And I don't know how you do poverty, racial equality, things like that in a video game. I don't know. That's not for me to decide, but I'd like to see more things like, I'd like to see more games that give you that good feeling that potentially makes you want to be a better person when you go outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason I brought it up is literally this one game, Epistory or Epistory that really got. I put a link to it in the chat as well, and I put the title in. Check it out. It to me, it's labelled as an educational game. It's labelled as a typing coach, but it is a game first and foremost, as I said. And I think if the educational games can be good, it's a massive fertile market, that's just untapped. You said, Brian, used to have games like that. Like you had things like the Zombinis and Carmen Sandiego and all them sorts of things that were games based around learning. If it's teaching you a skill, but doing so in an interesting way, in a way that you want to come back to and you want to play, I mean, surely that's a good thing. We don't have any of them out there anymore, at least not from double and AAA developers. Hellblade to me was one of the first, and I stumbled upon this Epistory in a Steam sale, and it's just really rung out to me and thought, shit, there's a market for this, because I'm playing it with, I do want to improve my typing, yeah, but for me, I'm playing it because it's a fucking great story. It's a girl riding out a fox. It's like a god fox, and finding why a meteor has come and like corrupted the lands around her, and finding out all the the hidden mysteries of controlling the elements, and it's a real wrapped game around it. So I don't know. I wonder how many other people would potentially go out there and try a game that was going to teach them something, but also going to be enjoyable and fun.
I think all games, in a sense, have the ability to teach you something. Like, you just might not realize it because you're playing a game. Like, some games cater to my bad habits, whether it be impulsiveness, like spending if I would have spent all my legendary marks before Zer came, which, like, don't really have a problem with those now, but, like, teaching you, like, restraint, to wait, like saving up for something, hand-eye coordination, patience, problem solving. I think it's a lot of things that all games can potentially, like, that's just the broad spectrum of games. Like, I guess it's not necessarily educational. That's more of like a skill builder. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, man, like, you look, like, I think they have to do it to make a very popular quote unquote educational game. They have to do it inadvertently and secretively. Like, you can't label it an educational game nowadays, and, like, people just immediately dismiss it, and it's pushed off to the side as just another, whatever game. I'm gonna have to check this game out that you're talking about, especially if it's cheap, because it might completely change my perspective on this. But
$6.70, it will make you a better typist, and you'll enjoy the fuck out of the game. It's really, really good.
I'm a terrible typist.
Get it, man. It's got adaptive difficulty, so the game gets harder or easier based on how many words per minute you type. So it's kind of always adjust your difficulty. So as you start to get better as a typist, the game makes it more challenging. And it's as I said, it's immersive. You're walking through the forest, and if you have to set fire to something, there'll be words like that will appear on it, like combustion, ignite, flammable, things that actually suit the mood of it. You're walking through, and if there's frost, it'll be like frigid, pale, foreboding, all stuff that's, I don't know. Again, I can't evangelize enough on this game. Check it out. Like I said, it's only going to be, I think, $6.70 for the next 24 hours. So I know I'm selling another thing on Steam. I've put the link in the chat. Typing Chronicles, but it doesn't look like a educational game. It looks to me like a really cool indie origami art title. But the whole game, imagine like an isometric ARPG, and the tiles of the map open up like pages of a story that are wrapped up out of coloured paper. Really, really beautiful, and the soundtrack's spot on. All narrated, very similar to Bastion in the way you've got a narrator talking you through a child's fairy tale about a meteor that came down to Earth and wiped out a load of brought corruption and wiped out a lot of the tranquility of nature. Really good game.
Once again,
that's all I have to say about it.
Told me another thing.
$6.70. I'm getting cheaper.
Yeah, right. It was a lot cheaper than the Oculus and the Vive.
Which we've had an update to Google Earth, man, and it's fucking great. If you've not been on Google Earth VR lately, check it out. They put on Street View on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Really, really good.
We have one more topic, but I don't want to do it without Beastly, guys. It's the topic is, if every job paid $100,000 a year, what job would you pick for the guy clockwise to you? So, for instance, I would be choosing Beastly's job. Beastly would be choosing Wilson's job. Wilson would choose Gary's job, and Gary would choose my job. But I don't want to do it without Beastly. And we've done 2 hours, so why don't we wrap it up, and we'll couch that one for next week. Does that sound okay?
Absolutely,
Sounds
yeah.
great.
We can get people in the comments actually tell us what job they think we should do as well. That's a great one.
I think that's a good idea, actually.
Give us some good ideas for next week. And homework for everyone. If and again, I've plugged the shit out of it. I'm going to plug it one more time, seeing as we're wrapping early. I've put a link in the Steam chat for Epistory Typing Chronicles. If you want to learn to type better and you want a great game, or you have children in your household that you want to get into typing because it's a great life skill, pick this game up. You won't regret it. It's something that I think everyone will enjoy.
And if you like beautiful things but hate yourself, check out Cuphead.
Oh, don't do that to yourself.
That was beautiful. That was awesome. You like beautiful things and want to hate yourself, check out Cuphead. It'll do both.
Gary, where can people find the podcast?
People can find the podcast on iTunes. They can also find it on Podbean. Unfortunately, because of American colonial imperialism, I can't load it onto Google Play, and none of you two American compatriots have offered to do it for me, so fuck you. They can pick it up on those two places, iTunes or Podbean. Revolver live. That's it.
We're just kind of fucking with you. We're like, and littering, and
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. You can also watch it live on this Twitch channel. If you're watching it right now, then you know where to find it. If you're not, twitch.tv/Briar Rabbit, where you can watch us at 6 o'clock Eastern every Sunday, where we have unedited mistakes like that, where random members will disconnect. We'll just have cats appear and jump into subwoofers. It's a really organized, professional, top quality experience.
I think that's
so
really
check
what
us
we
out.
shoot for, right? It's just the utmost of professionalism.
All the time.
yeah,
We're like
cats in a
Crackheads Gone
subwoofer.
Wild, the podcast.
Guys, this was a really fun show. Like I actually really had fun during the console debate. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good times.
I can understand
did.
why Beastly left. He was just so
Yeah.
upset that the PlayStation 4 left. He just decided. I'd be surprised if he comes back on next week.
Yeah.
Maybe the
I've
last
gotta be
time we
honest,
ever see him.
Yeah.
I almost had fun this week. I came really close to having fun. So next week, let's
really try and push it all
try.
the rest of the way. You know what my guess is? In all honesty, I'm starting to think that Beastly is plugging in that network cable, but he's still on Wi-Fi. Like he's not switching over to the NIC. He's actually still on Wi-Fi.
Can we
it's all
get
just for
a
show.
second hashtag Beastly was wrong?
Yes.
With
Hashtag Beastly was wrong.
hashtag-
I'd like to see that all week on Twitter. Hashtag Beastly was wrong. If you've got something that has upset you, or if you think it's something's hilarious, just throw the hashtag Beastly was wrong. And if you tag him on it, I think it'd be even better. The more
Yeah,
he
if
sees
you,
it, the more it'll upset him. And that's really what I'm aiming for here.
Tag any of us on Twitter with that. I think we'd be happy to see that hashtag tagged in us. So where
Yes.
can we find you guys on Twitter?
It's easy. You can find me at Ryu Wilson. That's RYU Wilson. If you're interested in
It's pronounced
potentially-
Ryu.
It's debatable. It's closer to Ryan, so I prefer Ryu. Ryu would be closer to Ryan, but I prefer Ryu. But if you want to check out any of my glass, I got an Instagram. It's Hadouken_glass on Instagram. I'm actually getting ready for a big trade show. Don't forget, I won't be on next week. So if you guys either want to 3-man it or potentially might be a good time to bring on a guest.
I've never had a 3-way before.
It's enjoyable.
All these 4
And,
ways. 4's a crowd. 3.
for all the people who got Beastly's reference at the start, whilst Wilson does make some amazing glass products, he unfortunately does not make anal beads. We have asked profusely many times.
I feel like this is a growth
He won't do it.
sector for you. Really an opportunity for growth.
Revolver
It's a growing
branded
market
anal
in the
beads.
UK, though. According to Gary, it's a growing market. I may have to dip my toes.
I think you have to dip more than that.
Yo, nailed it. This guy.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week, hopefully, with Beastly in tow next week and a special guest. Bye.
Love you guys.
I lost OBS. It's going to take me a second. It's not going to be a very dramatic close.
Well, you got to give it that, there's that